Chapter 891. All right. Chen Guang knew that in this situation, with his current cultivation at the early stage of muscle strength, it would be useless for him to stay here. Instead, it would make the other people on his side hesitate to attack. He pressed the communication device to ask for help from the camp a few kilometers away while he retreated under the cover of Long Dingtian. The other 3 elders of Six Swords sect were already fighting with the other 2 experts brought by Daoist Song Song and Master Pan. The strength of the people from Six Swords sect was stronger than expected. Although this sect was only one of the 27 sects and ranked lower than Plain Clothes sect and Fist sect in the pugilistic world, it had obviously hidden its strength for many years. Now that it had exploded, it could be considered as showing its true ability. After Qin Guang and Long Dingtian took 2 steps forward, they came to a halt. In just a few seconds, the experts from the 2 evil sects who were lying in ambush had surrounded the group so tightly that not even a drop of water could escape. In front of Qin Guang, a tall man in black with disheveled hair stood in front of the crowd. Another thin man in a purple robe with a golden plume on his head and an iron umbrella on his back stood side by side with the tall man. Behind these 2 people, there were all kinds of experts, old and young, standing crookedly. These people were not the army, so there was no discipline or system. However, the aura of inner strength that emanated from them made the night air a little chilly. They were indeed evil sections. Even if these people were expressionless and their faces could only be vaguely seen under the moonlight, they still gave people a very gloomy feeling. They lived up to their identity as villains. On the other side, after a round of clanking sounds, Abbess Xan Yuan and Wu Qingming finally joined forces to repel Zhuge Ling and quickly floated to Qin Guang's side. Abbess Xan Yuan's face was pale. Chief Chen, leave quickly. Of the 2 in front, one was the Poison Sect's sect master, Demon Sovereign Jiao, and the other was the Dark Sect's sect master, Xie Junyue. Standing behind them were the Poison Sect's elder, Jiao He, and the Dark Sect's vice sect master, Ghost Shadow. They are all experts. Chen Guang's scalp tingled when he heard the lineup of the opposite side. Thoughts flashed through his mind, and he made a decisive comparison between the strength of both sides that had been displayed so far. Due to the betrayal of the Six Swords sect, there were only 10 of them left. Among these 10 people, he was basically a mascot. Against those at the initial stage of Paijin, he might still be able to struggle a little, but against a master at the peak of Paijin, just based on the cloud-expelling palm that Taoist Vasp Kalo casually threw out, it was enough for him to explode on the spot. If Abbess Xan Yuan and Sect Master Wu worked together, they could deal with Six Swords sects Zhuge Ling. Taoist Song Song of the Plain Clothes sect and Master Pan of the Fist sect could each deal with 3 elders of the Six Swords sect. If the other 2 elders from the 2 sects worked together, they would be able to deal with the remaining 3 elders from the Six Swords sect. After careful calculations, if Long Dingtian and his guide could get rid of the sect masters of the Poison sect and Dark sect, as well as Jiao He, Ghost Shadow, and the 4 great guardians of the Dark sect, there was also the Golden Flower Granny that he had met once. Well, if Boss Long could deal with over 100 enemies by himself, then it wasn't impossible for him to fight today. I'd be a fool to believe you. What the hell am I doing? Everyone, surrender yourselves. We don't have much time to waste with you. I will count to 3. If you don't put down your weapons obediently, don't blame us for being impolite. The tall and burly sect master of the Poison sect, Demon Venerable Jiao, had a smug smile on his face as he spoke with a sharp voice that didn't match his physique. Chen Guang silently looked in the direction of the campsite. When he landed, he had already sent out a distress signal. The experts over there were rushing over at full speed, and it would only take them a few minutes to reach here. It seemed like it was time for him to show off his silver tongue. What was he supposed to do to buy himself a few more minutes? Haha. Funny, this is really funny. With his hands behind his back, Chen Guang took a step forward, disregarding his own safety, and stood at the front of the crowd. What are you laughing at? 3. Demon Venerable Jiao squinted his eyes and counted while looking at Chen Guang. Chen Guang turned back to look at Zhuge Ling, his mind racing. Do you really think that I don't know that Zhuge Ling is up to no good? Aren't you looking down on me too much? In the autopsy report, Zhuge Ling purposely didn't mention the strange cracks on the corpses, right? As he spoke, he was full of energy and confidence. Not only did he not panic when he was surrounded, he even put on an air of confidence. Unexpectedly, the moment he said this, Demon Venerable Jiao and Evil Monarch Yu's expressions changed, while Zhuge Ling's body trembled. Evidently, Chen Guang had dug out an insignificant topic from the depths of his heart to stall for time. In the end, it struck the greatest taboo in the hearts of these people. Old Master Guang expressed that although this matter could show that he had taken every possibility into account, it was actually not a good thing. What do you know? Zhuge Ling's hand that was holding the sword was trembling, and Demon Venerable Jiao also forgot to continue counting. Chen Guang did not dare to answer Zhuge Ling's words. Although he suspected that someone had obtained the power of the earth element, he did not know who that person was, nor did he know what state that person was in. He also did not understand how that person talked to the two evil sections. After thinking about it, he decided to continue acting. I know everything. Do you really think that I dare to come here today without any backing? Surrender obediently and I will spare your lives. Chen Guang put his hands behind his back, held his head high, and straightened his neck. Have you been shocked by my aura? Do you think that I am beating you at your own game? Not to mention the two evil sects and the traitors of Six Sword Sect, even Xan Yuan and Wu Qingming looked at each other with some doubt and joy on their faces. They really thought that Chen Guang really had other tricks up his sleeves. At this moment, the back of Chen Guang's head shook violently, and a strong force came from behind him, almost cutting off his neck. A strong and abundant inner strength came from the back of Chen Guang's head, and in an instant, it flowed all over his body, completely blocking his blood flow and wrapping around his bones. There was a crackling sound like firecrackers exploding in his body, and in an instant, all the bones in his body were twisted by this terrible inner strength. He was suddenly attacked from behind, and all the inner strength was injected into his body. Although his perfect body was strong, the opponent's inner strength was at its peak. Moreover, he was attacked by a sneak attack, and he could not resist it. A heart-wrenching pain pierced through his head like a high-voltage electric current. Chen Guang's vision turned black as he slowly collapsed to the ground. When he looked back when he landed on the ground, he saw Long Dingtian's smug face. If it weren't for the fact that he had experienced this pain countless times in the heavenly Holy Grail, Chen Guang would have completely fainted, but now he barely held on. Long Dingtian was also surprised. He did not expect that this sneak attack did not smash all the bones in Chen Guang's body, but only twisted them. Long Dingtian, you're courting death. Abbess Xan Yuan and Wu Qingming, who were standing at the back, changed their expressions. Zhuge Ling's betrayal was already a heavy blow, and Long Dingtian was also a traitor. The two of them roared angrily and pounced forward. Unexpectedly, Long Dingtian threw the big ring saber in his hand to the ground, grinned wildly, clenched his fists, and punched at Abbess Xan Yuan and Wu Qingming at the same time. He shouted, "You too, take my thunder fist. This is my real kung fu." At the same time, there were two loud noises. Both Xan Yuan and Wu Qingming flew backward at a speed faster than they rushed forward. Blood spurted from their mouths, and they fell straight into a sea of fiery red flowers behind them. No one expected that Long Dingtian, who was originally weak and not worth mentioning, could actually knock back two masters at the peak of skin force with one punch. His thunder fist was as powerful as thunder, swift and overbearing. Chen Guang lay on the ground powerlessly, looking back at Long Dingtian's smug smile. Countless images flashed through his mind, and he felt extremely bitter. This guy was not pretending at all. His strength was much stronger than he imagined, at least at the same level as Daoist Song Song. Although his punch just now did not kill him, it completely crippled him. At this moment, even twisting his neck was extraordinarily strenuous. Daoist Song Song and Master Pan looked bitter and were about to rush in the direction of Long Dingtian again, but Long Dingtian bent his waist and sneered while carrying Chen Guang. "Both of you, why don't you surrender?" Xan Yuan and Wu Qingming, who had been knocked into the sea of flowers, stood up again. Blood flowed from the corners of their mouths, and they were on the verge of collapsing. Abbess Yuan still could not believe it. Long Ding, why did you do this? Wu Qingming said, there's poison in the tea. Long Dingun laughed loudly, yes, it's indeed poisonous. Both of you, the taste of the poison sex cultivation dissipation powder is not very pleasant, right? Golden Flower Woman also walked out from the crowd with a proud face. Wu Qingming, you can't figure out why you can't smell it with your ability, right? Aren't you a little too conceited? How can the lost secret medicine of the dark sect, cultivation dissipation powder, be easy to get? If you don't touch the guiding medicine, it will be invisible and colorless. Even if you come here, you won't be able to feel it. But if you touch the guiding medicine, it will instantly take effect. No matter what realm you are at, you will become a useless person. As for the medicinal catalyst, it is naturally the pollen from the sea of blood-red flowers beneath you. As soon as Golden Flower Woman finished her words, Abbess Yuan and Wu Qingming collapsed to the ground. Their internal strength poured out from their bodies like a tide. Wu Qingming's originally glossy skin actually aged in an instant. Crow's feet appeared at the corners of her eyes, and her black hair began to turn silver from the roots like snow. The two seniors had lost all their martial arts. Chen Guang rolled his eyes. Although he did not understand the principle of the cultivation dissipation powder mentioned by Long Ding Tian, it was not important. What was important was that he had suffered a huge setback this time. Many doubts that he hadn't noticed before finally surfaced slowly at this moment. From a long time ago, Long Ding Tian was a member of the Poison Sect and the Dark Sect. He had signed an endorsement contract with him. The battle between him and Golden Flower Woman in the Five Capital was a show for him and Xian Qin. He had always been a spy hidden in the Upright Sect. He and Golden Flower Woman were not enemies of life and death like they were on the surface. All of this was to deceive the trust of the Upright Sect and himself. Not only that, when he arrived at the villa area yesterday, the two seemingly brainless security guards were actually deliberately arranged by Long Ding Tian. It seemed as though they had accidentally revealed the 8 luxury cars, but they had purposely revealed the flaw so that Long Ding Tian could use it to smooth things over and further weaken his guard. As for the tea, there was indeed something wrong with it. But because of the exquisite secret medicine of the Poison Sect, it would not have taken effect at that time. This further made him lower his guard. This was also a trick that Long Ding Tian deliberately sold. He knew that he was a smart person and would have a lot of ideas. But the biggest disadvantage of a smart person was that after thinking too much, it was easy to be overconfident. In addition, his information was mixed with some truth and some falsehood. There was no doubt that the Poison Sect and the Dark Sect were indeed in Ninghai Province. The information he provided was also true. Because of this, I believed all of Long Ding Tian's words and led the team here. But I didn't expect to fall into this trap today. So far, there was only one doubt, and that was, where did Jiang Yage get the information that made him completely convinced that the information was correct? Chen Guang did not believe that Jiang Yage would harm him. She was just used. In short, the ultimate goal of all their plans was to capture him alive. So now they succeeded. The bustling sound in the distance was getting closer and closer. The reinforcements from the camp were rushing all the way. But they seemed to be too late. Well, kill the 2 old women and then let's go. Demon Venerable Jiu waved his hand calmly and ordered. Ghost Shadow of the Dark Sect suddenly appeared. The next moment, he turned into a black shadow and appeared in front of Abbess Yuan and Wu Qingming, who were sitting on the ground. The two looked at each other, and their eyes were full of remorse. Things became like this today because Long Ding Tian, who had been cooperating with them for a long time, betrayed them first. If it weren't for this guy, why would they come to Ninghai Province in such a hurry? They recalled that when Chen Guang was suspicious of Long Ding Tian, the two of them were the ones who tried to persuade Chen Guang to help Long Ding Tian explain. That was also the reason why Chen Guang misjudged the situation. Chen Guang, I'm sorry. You don't have to do it. I'll do it myself. Ghost Shadow said sinisterly from the cloak, then please hurry up. Abbess Yuan nodded silently. She pinched the bottom of the horsetail whisk and pulled out a small dagger from the root. She was about to slash her neck with it. Wait a minute. Chen Guang suddenly yelled, and Abbess Xen Yuan's dagger stopped moving. What else do you want to do at this time? Stalling for time? Dark sect leader Xie Junyue sneered. Chen Guang didn't bother about him and turned around to speak to Long Dingnan. Chief Long, seeing that the two seniors were once friends with you, and seeing that we are acquaintances, let me go to the side of the two seniors and let me send them off with my eyes. Chen Guang pursed his lips tightly. In this situation, he really couldn't think of any way to save the two seniors' lives. He could only pin his hopes on the heavenly Holy Grail in his sling bag. If the two of them were really alive, if the two of them were as lucky as Lung Qin, perhaps they could continue to live in the heavenly Holy Grail. It was better than dying like this. Long Dinghan hesitated for a moment, and a complicated look flashed in his eyes. The next moment, he carried Chen Guang and stood in the sea of flowers. He was standing 1 or 2 meters in front of the two seniors. Long Dingtian loosened his hand, and Chen Guang collapsed like mud. He supported his broken bones with his last breath and sat on the ground. Chen Guang slowly raised his head and looked at Abbess Xen Yuan and Wu Qingming in front of him. The endless sea of blood-red flowers seemed as bright as day under the moonlight. Chen Guang's eyes were bloodshot. Seniors, I'm incompetent. I'm the one who harmed you. Xen Yuan smiled. No, Chen Guang, this is Qingming's and my fault. Wu Qingming also said, I, Wu Qingming, boast of my intelligence, but I didn't expect to end up like this. Ghost Shadow, who was standing behind the two of them, urged, if you don't die, I will personally send you on your way. Abbess Xen Yuan's pupils shrank. The dagger flashed coldly, and blood splattered. Wu Qingming took the dagger from Abbess Xen Yuan, who was lying in a pool of blood. Her eyes were momentarily confused. She gritted her teeth and slashed her neck with the dagger. 2 drops of blood flew over from the front and landed on the back of Chen Guang's hand. Smelling the blood in his nose, Chen Guang's mind was blood red. Suddenly, it became empty and he didn't know what was going on. All right, let's go. Long Dingtian lifted Chen Guang and carried him on his back. He took the lead and ran into the depths of the mountain. The goal had been achieved. The people from the evil sects didn't besiege the people from Plain Cloth Sect and Fist Sect. Instead, they retreated like the tide. Daoist Song Song and Master Pan were powerful and couldn't be taken down easily. Instead of ending up being surrounded to kill 2 more people, the people from the 2 evil sects wanted to be safe. Chief Chen, don't blame me. I have my own master. There's nothing too deceitful in a war between 2 armies. If you want to blame someone, blame Xen Yuan and Wu Qingming. It's their trust in me that misled your judgment. Otherwise, you wouldn't be fooled so easily. After an unknown period of time, when Chen Guang woke up, he was still rising and falling on Long Dingtian's back. Long Dingtian knew that he had woken up, so he started to enlighten him. Chen Guang didn't want to pay attention to him. Although his life wasn't in danger for the time being, he thought about how he led the world's experts to Ninghai province in a mighty manner. He originally wanted to destroy the people from the 2 evil sects easily. He didn't expect that he would be tricked from the beginning. Who was the person behind the scenes? He had taken every possibility into account and laid an inescapable net, waiting for him to jump into it. He could even calculate the grudge between the old masters in Yanjing and him. Then he used his unconditional trust in Jiang Yage and deliberately sold real information to Jiang Yage to make him make up his mind. Now that he had become a prisoner, not only could he not help Wenwen, but he would also be used as a hostage to threaten Wenwen. The most painful thing was the deaths of Abbess Xen Yuan and Wu Qingming. Although he didn't have much contact with them and didn't have deep feelings for them, they were Xan Qin and Wu Miaowan's masters after all. They treated the 2 little Lolis like their masters and mothers. At this moment, they should be looking at the corpses of the 2 seniors and grieving. Long Dinghan, I don't care who your backer is. I can guarantee that all of you will die. Chen Guang finally spoke. Long Dingtian didn't care and laughed. Of course we will die. Who doesn't die in this world? That depends on how you die. You die on the spot, you die as a dissolute ghost among thousands of flowers, you die as well, you die as an old man. What on earth are you after? Chen Guang asked again. Long Dinghun hesitated for a moment before replying, "What am I after? I want to be immortal." "Does your backer have the ability to do that?" "I didn't believe it before, but I believe it recently." "Long Ding Tian, you've said too much." The golden flower woman turned around and glared at him. Long Ding Tian laughed. "What's wrong with that? Anyway, Qin Guang won't live for long. Once Wenwen dies, he won't be able to live anymore. Chief Qin, don't worry. I will personally send you on your way and won't let anyone torture you. I guarantee that you will lose your senses the moment you close your eyes. Then I will have to thank you." Chen Guang suddenly laughed, and it was an exceptionally strange laugh. Just now, his consciousness took a trip to the heavenly Holy Grail. Lu Li was still in seclusion. Lu Ming saw that his mental state wasn't right and said a few more words to him. "Firstly, you won't die. Secondly, you have been stained with the blood of that nun and that coquettish old vixen. Now, the two of them have been reborn in the sea of time. Thirdly, Lu Li's matter will be done soon." Chapter 892. Previously, when Xinguang was at the camp, no one felt that he was of much use. He was more like a mascot. But now that he was captured, and the two deputy directors fainted because of the loss of their teacher, the camp by the lake of Ninghai suddenly fell into a state of no leader. Then, many of the Jianghu experts who relied on the Guangding General Office realized that the situation was not good. Now, they were in an awkward situation, and no one could make a decision. Everyone was even more at a loss as to what to do. It could even be said that Qin Guang was captured, and everyone's confidence was shaken. It seemed that the Guangding General Office of Wuxia was not as powerful as imagined. He looked like he was useless, but in fact they really could not do without him. His identity not only represented the government, but he was also the world's #1 expert. His identity was not considered noble, but it was indeed enough to convince the public. But now that he was lost, the rest of the people were in a mess. The special agents of the Guangding General Office and the Jianghu people blamed each other. No one could stand the other, and no one was willing to listen to the other. Originally, with the status and strength of the Jianghu leaders of plainclothes faction and fist faction, even if there was an accident, it would not be a problem for them to take over the authority of Qin Guang and the two deputy directors and give orders. But now, Qin Guang was captured under the eyes of these two people. As the leaders of the 8 major sects, they were highly respected and had profound skills. Although it was not good for others to say anything in front of them, it was hard to know what was in a man's heart. It was hard to guarantee that no one would secretly suspect whether plainclothes faction and fist faction had been bribed. At this time, the words of the two sects were not so useful. The two evil sects had taken great pains to capture Qin Guang, so it was impossible that they had no other purpose. It was not difficult to guess that the two evil sects and the defecting Six Swords faction were very likely to use Chief Qin to make a fuss. Maybe their real target was Wen Zhaowen. Once they succeeded and Wen Zhaowen died, did this mean that the Wuxia officials sent out troops to suppress them was all bark and no bite, and they still failed in the end? As the saying went, when the team grew bigger, it became harder to lead the team. This was the current situation. Even their leader had been kidnapped, so the people below naturally had their own thoughts. Shui Lin accepted the responsibility in the face of danger. Although his words were still useful in the Wuxia military, he really had no right to speak on the Jianghu people's side. He could only stabilize the situation. On the other hand, after the news of Qin Guang's capture reached Beijing, there was an uproar. When that kid was safe and sound, the group of old men in Yanjing didn't think that he was of much use. But now that he was suddenly lost, they only knew how to cherish him after losing him. The situation in Yanjing immediately turned into a mess. Someone proposed at the meeting that since they now knew the general location of the other party, it was better to take advantage of the fact that they were in Ninghai, a sparsely populated province, to launch a large-scale precise attack and blow them up. Chao Jingming, Jiang Yuanchao's nemesis, was the leader of those who held this view. Jiang Yuanchao and Shui Zhan, on the other hand, strongly opposed the idea. They suggested that even missiles might not be able to completely destroy the enemy. If they failed to achieve their goal, the consequences would be unimaginable. Moreover, now that Qin Guang was being held hostage, they couldn't possibly blow up the hostage as well, right? The two groups argued fiercely in the meeting, almost to the point of fighting. Until the end of the meeting, there was still no conclusion. I still feel that this is not so simple. Chao Jingming is too optimistic about burning the bridge after crossing it. If it was so easy to blow up these people, we wouldn't have to be so troubled. Have you contacted Shui Lin? What do the people there think? After the meeting, Jiang Yuanchao complained to Shui Zhan in private. Shui Zhan sighed. Now the two deputy chiefs are not in the mood to manage things, and the others don't have a legitimate identity. Two major forces in the Jianghu people have betrayed them, and they are very suspicious of each other. Shui Lin can only barely control the situation and prevent it from becoming a complete mess. But there are already people who want to retreat, and there are also people who are on good terms with sect leader Xin and sect leader Wu who want to fight to the death. 100 people have 100 ideas. Qin, this kid sigh. Jiang Yuanchao sighed, his head full of bumps. Why was he taken away just like that? At this moment, Jiang Yuanchao's personal guard walked in quickly. He glanced at Shui Zhan and hesitated to speak. Jiang Yuanchao urged, "Just say it, I have nothing to hide from old Shui." The personal guard said, "Boss, Miss Jiang is here." Jiang Yuanchao was stunned. "Why is Yargo here at this time?" "Miss Jiang said she has something very important to talk to you about." Jiang Yuanchao thought for a moment. Although Jiang Yage was the apple of her family's eye and was quite favored, she had never participated in political or military affairs. She only focused on being a celebrity, singing whenever she wanted, acting in movies whenever she wanted. Fortunately, she had made a name for herself and didn't embarrass her family. This time, even if the news of Qin Guang's capture reached her, she should know that with his personality, he would definitely find a way to rescue him and would never sit back and do nothing. Although Yargo was usually not a proper person, she was actually quite sensible. She knew that he was in a terrible situation, so why would she come here? "Let her in," Jiang Yuanchao ordered. "I'm sorry, old Shui." Shui Zhan waved his hand. Maybe Yargo was asked by Shiyue to find out more about the situation. No matter what, for the sake of Shiyue's love for Qin Guang, as the elders, we must try our best. If we can't do it, we can just wait for the other party to negotiate. As long as Qin Guang is not dead, there is still room for negotiation. We can also discuss the conditions they put forward. As long as it is not too much, we can still negotiate within the scope of expediency. As the two were talking, Jiang Yage pushed the door open with a pale face and walked in quickly. She first looked at Shui Zhan, but without much hesitation she swallowed and said, "Dad, there is something wrong with Uncle Chao." Jiang Yuanchao and Shui Zhan were stunned at first, not understanding what Jiang Yage meant. Jiang Yuanchao said, "You can't just say things like that." Jiang Yage lost control of her emotions at that moment. It was a conspiracy from the beginning. Those people wanted to lure Qin Guang there. I know you wanted to hide Wenwen's whereabouts from Qin Guang, so I wanted to help him, so I secretly asked someone to find out. Then Uncle Chao asked someone to tell me that Wenwen's mobile phone had a signal at the border between Xianxia and Ninghai. I told this to Qin Guang, and that was the reason why Qin Guang would immediately set off with his men. That's why I fell into their trap. I regret it so much. Jiang Yuanchao and Shui Zhan looked at each other. Yargo, you really can't just say things like that. There must be evidence. Chao Jingming is also a general of the same rank as us. We can't just convict him based on one side of the story. Moreover, the most important thing for us now is to find a way to rescue Qin Guang. As for the investigation of the mole, let's postpone it for the time being. Jiang Yage burst into tears. I know that, but I feel terrible. Didn't Uncle Chao get punished for speaking rudely to Qin Guang during the military exercise? He hated me at that time. Shut up. Jiang Yuanchao interrupted her without hesitation. Don't say any more. Now is not the time to pursue this matter. Based on Chao Jingming's performance in the meeting, Jiang Yuanchao knew that his daughter's guess was probably right. But this kind of speculation, no matter how reasonable it sounded, could never be used as evidence, let alone punish Chao Jingming for it. Jiang Yage cried even harder. Jiang Yuanchao didn't know how to comfort her, so he patted her shoulder. My good daughter, as your father, I promise you, if the other party threatens us with Chen Guang's life and wants to negotiate with us, even if I have to sacrifice my principles, I will give in on the negotiation table, okay? Shui Zhan opened his mouth but didn't say anything. He felt that it was not right for Jiang Yuanchao to make such a promise to Jiang Yage, but there seemed to be no other way. After a while, Jiang Yage finally calmed down, but she didn't stay for long. She said that she had to go back to compensate Jin Shuriwei and left. Sigh. Jiang Yuanchao heaved a long sigh. Shui Zhan sighed as well. After a while, Lin Jingwei and Bai Hua, who flew to Yanjing overnight, also arrived. Their intentions were more or less the same. No one really wanted to give up on Qin Guang, but in such a hurry, no one could do anything about it. Everything was passive, and they could only wait for the other party to contact them. On the other hand, in the campsite by Ninghai Lake, everyone was arguing. Some people from the sects were already planning to leave. Shui Lin didn't have much experience, and she didn't have much power in the military. In addition to her young age, she couldn't show her authority in the face of these internal force users, whom she could only look up to in the past. The two armies are at war. We haven't even seen the person, and the commander is already captured. What's the point of fighting? Why don't we just disband and go back? In the future, we can still take care of our own business. What a joke. Shut up. I think the Bloodcloth sect is also a traitor. Who doesn't know that you guys like to train with the blood of children? You're slandering us. Since the founding of the nation, the Bloodcloth sect has never done anything that harms living beings. We all buy and sell openly. Children are not deceived. The blood collection vehicle is also internationally advanced. One needle at a time, strictly sterilized, and resolutely put an end to infectious diseases. All right. Old man, take a break. You're still thinking of advertising yourself at a time like this. My friends in the Jianghu, no matter what, we used to be small businesses in the wild. Although we didn't have to worry about food and clothing, we were always afraid that one day, those in power would suddenly act like the ancient emperors and use their martial arts to break the law and kill us. It was Chief Qin who made the Guangding headquarters happen. Everyone had a place to settle down. Although they had less freedom than when Ouyang Tianxing was in charge, they had more peace. I feel that we can't turn a blind eye to the burning of bridges after crossing the river. That's right. Chief Qin was captured because the people from the evil sects slapped our faces. What's most important in the Jianghu? Face is the most important. Loyalty is the most important. Chief Qin is our leader. Now that our leader has been captured, are we going to turn around and run? What will the history books say? The history books will scold us for practicing martial arts all our lives, but at the critical moment, we become turtles. Our children and grandchildren will be a laughing stock for generations. This old man can't afford to lose face. Old Baldy, you make it sound nice. Then what do you think we should do now? Kill our way in to save them? Who's going to lead the team? Aren't you afraid that the people from the evil sects will kill the hostages? Are you going to take responsibility if Chief Qin gets killed? Even so, we can't just turn around and run, right? Shui Lin sat in the crowd and watched the group of people making a racket. He tried several times to speak up to maintain order, but he couldn't even raise his voice. Chapter 893. Almost everyone here could kill him in a second. He was only a squad leader before he joined the military. Even in the Guangding General Headquarters, he was only a temporary commander during the mission to annihilate the broken world. In the end, he fell into a trap and was captured. When he came back to his senses, the broken world was inexplicably destroyed. He had no credit, no ability, no experience. He was basically a nobody. Naturally, he did not have any prestige. At this moment, the tent was suddenly opened. Two little girls appeared outside the tent. They were Xan Qin and Wu Miaowen, who had been crying for a whole night. Their eyes were red and swollen. The leaders and elders of the various sects in the tent temporarily quieted down. Although the Thousand Despair sect and the Thousand Flower Valley were small sects in the martial arts world, they moved quickly. They had long been in contact with the Wuxia government and were now the deputy director of the Guangding General Headquarters. No matter how inexperienced these two little girls were, at least at this moment, they represented the official orthodoxy. People who practiced martial arts paid attention to orthodoxy and status. Moreover, these two deputy directors had lost their master because of this matter. The people of Jianghu understood the importance of the master's inheritance. No one would rub salt on the two girls' wounds at this time. Their master had sacrificed his life for the country. Now that his corpse was still warm, it was reasonable to show some respect. Otherwise, they would be looked down upon by the people of Jianghu. Even if Chen Guang was dead, the people of Jianghu did not think that the Guangding General Headquarters would be disbanded. What if these two girls continued to be the deputy directors in the future? Seniors, someone from the Dark Clan contacted us just now. Although Xianxia's eyes were red and swollen, her expression was exceptionally firm. What did they say? Daoist Song of the Plainclothes sect was the most anxious. Just as the person said, Chen Guang was captured under his protection. If they really suffered a crushing defeat this time, even if the Plainclothes sect was one of the 8 major sects, they would not be able to raise their heads for a few years. They want us to withdraw immediately. Otherwise, they will kill the hostages. The words that came out of Xianxia's mouth instantly caused a huge commotion. Some people agreed with her and quickly nodded their heads in agreement. The general idea was that no matter what, they should withdraw first and slowly plan later. There were also more radical people who strongly opposed it, such as Daoist Song and Fist Tyrant Panda. Daoist Vasp Kalo anxiously said, "This is ridiculous. The reason why they kidnapped Bureau Chief Chen is to deal with when family sect leader Wen. If sect leader Wen does not appear, Bureau Chief Chen's life will not be in danger. They are only scaring us." Fist Tyrant Panda nodded. That's right. If they wanted to kill Chief Chen, they would have done so immediately. Why would they take him away? Deputy Bureau Chief Exen, we have to avenge your teacher. We can't leave. Everyone argued for a few more minutes, but it was no different from before. It was still impossible to reach a consensus. All right, seniors, please stop quarreling. Xianxia's voice finally broke the noisy situation and drew everyone's attention back to her. Dozens of Jianghu seniors turned their heads to look at her. Xianxia took a deep breath. Retreat. Many people secretly heaved a sigh of relief. However, Daoist Song and Fist Tyrant Panda refused to accept it and left just like that. Although most of the pressure would fall on the two deputy bureau chiefs, and others would secretly say that they did not care about their teacher's blood feud, the two major sects would not be able to escape the gossip. Unexpectedly, Wu Miaoan said, "Commander Shui will lead the troops to retreat first, but we sisters will continue to stay here under our own names. We sincerely request the seniors who are willing to help us to stay and help us to avenge our teacher. Right now, we do not know where sect leader Wen is and cannot contact her, but perhaps sect leader Wen will need our help. However, as long as we can find sect leader Wen and discuss with her, with sect leader Wen's unparalleled skills, she might be able to come up with a solution." Everyone immediately understood. In order to deal with the request of the evil sects and prevent any possibility of Chen Guang being killed, the two girls gave the order to retreat on the surface, but because of the blood feud between their sect and the current uncertain situation, someone had to stay behind to support them. However, they had a strong army now, and the other party had set up an ambush. After a portion of the people left, this place would really become a tiger's den. Sect leader Wen was indeed trustworthy, but that was something that had yet to be seen. What if she did not come? What if she was too conceited and went to the headquarters of Poison Sect or Dark Sect? Or, what if the two evil sects and the traitors from Six Sword Sect attacked first? No one would have thought that two juniors with bone force would have such courage. Who would leave? Who would stay? This was a question that many people had to face. Xianxia and Wu Miaoan pursed their lips and looked at the hesitant Jianghu people. At this moment, no one was in a more difficult situation than them. Thousand Despair Sect and Thousand Flower Valley were not powerful sects to begin with, and it was Xianxia who introduced Long Ding Tian to Chen Guang. Dragon Gate Express was on the same side as Thousand Despair Sect and Thousand Flower Valley. The consequences of Long Dingtian's betrayal were much more serious than Six Swords Sect's Zhuge. If one were to say that inviting a wolf into the house was a mistake, the first mistake was Xianxia. Now that their master was dead and there were no more powerful experts in the sect, they had to sit in such a troublesome position. Their own abilities were not enough to convince the others, and the most difficult thing to bear was that Chen Guang was captured. Both of them were equally anxious. On one hand, they had to worry about Chen Guang's safety, and on the other hand, they had to avenge their master. The two young girls were in a dilemma. That was why they came up with the idea of retreating on the surface and staying behind on their own. However, they knew that they would be in trouble if they stayed behind. There would not be many people who would be willing to help them. As expected, not long after, many Jianghu people waved their hands and left. Shui Lin watched anxiously behind the two of them. This group of heartless and selfish cowards. Otherwise, I'll stay behind with my men. However, Xianxia shook her head and refused. The other party used the retreat as a condition. Although you have a lot of men, they are all ordinary people. They won't be of much use in a fight between experts. It's better to retreat directly to confuse the public. We came in a hurry this time, and you only brought individual weapons. It's possible to sneak an attack on a bone force martial artist, but it's barely enough to deal with an expert at the peak of skin force. It will only increase the number of casualties. Wu Miaowan nodded. The two of us will stay behind. Even if the people from the evil sects take action, we can still deal with them. But, no buts. However, when most of the people left, leaving only Daoist Song, Fist Tyrant Panda, and a dozen sect leader-level experts, Xianxia and Wu Miaowan still could not hide their disappointment. With the strength of these people, it would be far from enough. Even Daoist Vasp Kalo and Panda both called the other elder back. Obviously the two sect heads had decided to give up their lives here. Sending one elder back was also to leave more incense for the sect. The mighty army that was pressing down on the border instantly fell apart because of Chen Guang's capture. This was out of everyone's expectation. On top of the mountain, Ghost Shadow was holding a telescope and looking at the camp from afar. He sneered. This group of righteous sects is like this. They rely on their numbers to have some guts. Actually, when the time comes, they're all cowards. He stood beside Ghost Shadow. He was also holding a telescope. But there are still some who are not afraid of death. Those two girls actually didn't leave. Why don't we? Ghost Shadow shook his head. Forget it. Daoist Song and Fist Tyrant Panda are powerful. Even if sect leader makes a move, he might not be able to take them down easily. Let's wait for Mr. Shadow to ambush and kill that one clan's demoness. By then, these people are just small fries. He continued, I don't know where Mr. Shadow got his fortuitous encounter. This time, his power actually increased greatly. But for some reason, I'm still worried whether he can kill that one clan's demoness. Ghost Shadow also sighed. Only the heavens know what's going on. Mr. Shadow and Wen Clan's demoness are not at a realm that we can estimate. That little girl is also filled with strangeness. Her power is like a monkey that can fly to the sky. We're afraid just looking at her. If it wasn't for the fact that we have absolute confidence, why would we spend so much effort to capture Chen Guang? You said that you're also called Ghost Shadow. Mr. Shadow also has the word Ing in his name. Why are the two of you so different? Scram. The two of them chatted happily with each other. In the dark sect of the Poison Sect, He and Ghost Shadow had a close relationship. Although they were not in the same sect, their movements were almost inseparable. Both of them were skilled in alacrity and were good at gathering information as well. At this moment, Chen Guang was tied up tightly with hemp rope. He was lying on a metal bed. The room he was in was underground, and there was only a dim light above his head. 2 flies were flying around the light and buzzing. He was speechless. All the bones in his body were cracked, and Long Dingtian actually found such a thick rope to tie him up like a dumpling. About half an hour ago, the right side of his butt had been itching. He wanted to scratch it, but he couldn't move. It was extremely uncomfortable. What was even more infuriating was that from being captured last night until he was locked in this dungeon this morning, he hadn't eaten a single grain of rice or drank a single drop of water. His stomach was rumbling with hunger. This situation of hunger and thirst had weakened the self-regeneration ability of the Earth Sauce Exploder. Until now, the cracks on his bones hadn't healed. What do you guys think this cup is used for? Why does this guy carry it with him all day long? Long Dingtian sat on the sofa with his legs crossed. He was holding onto Qin Guang's heavenly holy grail and was sizing it up. The golden flower matron lit a cigarette. Maybe he has some weird fetish. It's fine for a man to carry a cup with him, but he actually learned from a little girl and wrapped it with a knitted cover. What a virtue! Chapter 894. Long Dingtian smacked his lips. That's right. I didn't expect a grown man like Qin Guang to still have a child's heart. Fortunately, he didn't see Qin Guang's Hello Kitty cup cover. Otherwise, he would have to dig his eyes out. But out of curiosity, he decided to remove the cup cover to see what was inside. At this moment, Lu Mingguo was gnashing his teeth in the heavenly holy grail. Two lowly mortals. I'm warning you. Don't court death. It was a pity that Long Dingtian couldn't hear Lu Mingguo's threat and casually tore off the Iron Man cup cover. The heavenly holy grail turned into a fiberglass cup and was exposed to the air. In an instant, the huge room was filled with multicolored lights and vibrant colors. Sanskrit chants could be heard, and a strange fragrance rose without any wind. The above was purely boasting. The truth of the matter was that the dear fruit fiercely gritted its teeth and wasted its divine power in vain, wrapping a layer of cover on the surface of the colored glass portrait on the wall of the cup. The fairy goddess that Lu Li had transformed into was gone. After all, she didn't have any clothes. She had turned into a large green fruit. I thought it was something incredible. It turned out to be a fiberglass cup. Tiske, this taste is truly terrible. Who would print such a strange green fruit on the cup? Shouldn't it be plum, orchid, bamboo, and chrysanthemum? Otherwise, a landscape painting would also be good. Ugly, truly ugly. What kind of aesthetic sense is this? Isn't it too problematic? The golden flower matron snatched the cup from Long Dingtian's hand and threw it into the rubbish bin. You are always so troublesome. Mr. Ing will be back soon. Let's go to the dungeon and take a look. I hope that fellow Qin Guang doesn't bite his tongue and commit suicide. Long Dingtian stood up in boredom. You really think too highly of him. I understand him. I can confirm that Qin Guang might look like an upright person, but deep in his bones, he has the character of die for me. Even if he knows that we are using him to restrain one, he won't commit suicide. Is that so? Of course. Lu Mingguo, who was in the cup, was trembling with anger. Two reckless ants. How dare you say that there's something wrong with this empress's aesthetics? I will make the two of you into elemental puppets and make you slaves for all eternity. How dare you throw the Holy Grail into the dustbin? The two of you are in trouble. This empress is telling you, the two of you are really in trouble. The last time I was this angry, I had to slaughter millions of divine nations to barely appease my anger. Lu Li's voice suddenly sounded out. All right, Lu Ming, stop arguing. It's not worth it to be angry over the matters of these ants. Sister Lioli, you're finally out of seclusion? Not yet. How much longer? It depends on my mood. Lu Ming, it's also because I don't have a thumb. Otherwise, I'd really want to give Sister Lioli a thumbs up. In the past, I always looked down on Qin Guang, feeling that he wasn't worthy of Sister Lioli's support and help. I don't know why, but now I suddenly feel a little pity for him. It's really hard for him to be the savior of someone like Sister Lioli. Actually, the two of them were a perfect match, one half a caddy and the other 8 tails. Long Dingtian and Golden Flower Granny chatted as they walked and went straight to the damp and cold dungeon. Long Dingtian crossed his arms behind his back and ran in front of Qin Guang with a smile. He looked down at him from above. Director Qin, is this room comfortable? Qin Guang, damn retard. Golden Flower Granny popped her head out from the other side. I'm talking to you. Damn retard multiplied by 2. Do you believe that I'll kill you right now? Golden Flower Granny raised her hand, her palm pulsing with inner strength. She was obviously angry. Chen Guang laughed coldly, not caring. Come on, don't pretend in front of me. It's boring, really boring. If you wanted to kill me, you would have done it long ago. Why wait until now? If you have something to say it quickly. In any case, don't even think about getting any information from me. I've never been someone who is afraid of death. Come at me if you have any tricks up your sleeves. Long Ding Tian said, Director Chen, you're thinking too much. We all know that you're famous in Guangdong Police Headquarters for not doing anything. I'm afraid that you don't even know everyone in the headquarters. How can I expect to get any information from you? You don't even know as much as I do. Chen Guang realized that in a sense, this guy was right. It was so King awkward. Forget it, don't worry about the details. In any case, I'm not panicking at all. Since they came here to pretend instead of escorting me out and asking me to record it, it means that one hasn't appeared yet. That's good news. So, you adulterous couple came down here just to show off to me? You guys sure have nothing better to do. Chen Guang replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. How can I not lose in terms of aura when facing a villain? I have to be more of a villain than they appear. You can bind my body, but you can't bind my free self. Long Ding Tian saw that he was still so calm and said in surprise, Chen Guang, I realize that I've really underestimated you. Are you really not afraid of death? A real man lives as a hero and dies as a hero. Life is lighter than a goose feather, and death is heavier than Mount Tai. This is just a stinky body. If it's gone, then it's gone. I, Chen Guang, have stood tall for 20 years. I have a clear conscience. Do I still care about this? 20 years later, I'll be a real man again. You two better hide your graves deep. Otherwise, I'll definitely find your graves and grind your bones into ashes. No, I'll make your ashes into a plaster piggy bank. I'll throw a dime into it every day and listen to the sound. You two traitors, scourging the world and betraying your friends. Your retribution will come sooner or later. It's not that the time hasn't come yet. I have God 3 feet above my head, and my heart is filled with righteousness. In a few days, I'll turn into a sharp blade of justice and let the two of you know the vicissitudes of righteousness. Thinking of the long days of heaven and earth. Confidence, unafraid of death, and confidence in bragging. Chen Guang felt that his current heroic spirit was comparable to those martyrs during the War of Resistance. No, I should be more literary than them. It's a pity that Qin Huang and Han Wu are slightly inferior. I'm ashamed, I'm really ashamed. I'm a person protected by God. I've let everyone see a joke. Ever since he knew that Abbess Xan Yuan and Wu Qingming could be resurrected in the Sea of Time, the pressure in his heart had been greatly relieved. In a sense, this might be a great news. This meant that he, who possessed the heavenly Holy Grail, had actually found an excellent escape route for his friends and family. In the beginning, only Lung Qin was resurrected in the Sea of Time, and this matter was still uncertain. Later on, there was Nicosia, but this might be related to Nicosia's unimaginably powerful machinery heart. But now, he had used the same trick and actually succeeded in protecting Abbess Xan Yuan and Wu Qingming's souls. This was an official announcement that he had developed a new function for the Heavenly Holy Grail. It could collect the souls of those who died in the Heavenly Holy Grail or near him. This was the strongest and most insane function of the Heavenly Holy Grail. This meant that from today onwards, as long as he was careful, those who followed him wouldn't die. 2 lives. Wait a minute. Chen Guang pinched his fingers and calculated. It seemed like there were more than 1 or 2 people who fulfilled this condition. Why did he only notice Lung Qin and Nicosia? Lu Mingguo was only talking about Abbess Xan Yuan and Wu Qingming. What about the others? He wanted to enter the Heavenly Holy Grail, but the Grail was taken away. Although she would definitely think of a way when Azure came out of seclusion, she wasn't used to it now. Forget it, he would ask later. The forced PY transaction had not cooled down yet. Otherwise, if he used it on Long Ding Tian, he would definitely obediently hand over the Grail with both hands. Long Dingtian understood Chen Guang's character. He knew that he was stubborn and pretended to be the most unyielding. Long Dingtian curled his lips and smiled without saying anything. But the golden flower woman beside him was shocked. She wondered why this guy was so resolute and even started to recite a poem. If this guy really succeeded in seeking death, with Mr. Ying's style of doing things, she and Long Dingtian would definitely be buried with him. Although it was inconvenient for Chen Guang to move at this time, he saw the golden flower woman's expression. His heart moved and he said again, "Haha, don't you want to use my life to threaten Wenwen? It's not a big deal. Anyway, I reckon that in another day or two, I will almost pass away." The golden flower woman pulled out a handkerchief from her hand and wanted to stuff it into Chen Guang's mouth. She thought that this guy couldn't move now. If he wanted to commit suicide, he could only bite his tongue and commit suicide. However, Chen Guang was still smiling. "Come on. Shut my mouth. Aren't you afraid that I will bite my tongue and commit suicide? Don't look down on me. How painful would that be? Surely a hunger strike is more reliable, okay? Once you fall asleep, you won't wake up." The golden flower woman glared. "You want to die on a hunger strike? Dream on." "Dream on? To tell you the truth, from last night until now, I haven't eaten a grain of rice or drunk a drop of water. In another 3 or 4 days, you'll have to wait to collect my corpse." "Ha! 10 minutes later. I'll stuff you to death. I'll stuff you to death. How about a big, greasy chicken drumstick? I'll make you go on a hunger strike. Show me how you go on a hunger strike." I say, Long Ding, why do I feel that he's eating quite happily? You've already eaten 5 servings by yourself. How can you go any further? Chen Guang roared angrily. "Both of you remember this. If you have the guts, then stuff me to death. If you don't stuff me to death, I'll be your grandfather." After stuffing a total of 10 people's worth of food into his mouth, Chen Guang kept cursing. In the end, Long Dingtian and the golden flower woman didn't reject any of the fried chicken, hamburgers, pot stickers, and fried dumplings that were sent to his mouth. Damn it, this group of bastards hid in the mountains, yet their food was so authentic. Let's not talk about the fried chicken, hamburgers, and other foreign fast food. This pot sticker was fried until it was golden and crispy. It melted in the mouth and was fragrant and delicious. The taste of the fried dumplings was also the work of a master. It looked like a simple dish, but it was made in style. When chewed in the mouth, it reminded one of youth that had passed away under the setting sun. Go, go, go. What time is it now? Hurry up and eat. Who cares about taste? He was actually quite full, but once his stomach started to fill up, the Earth's sauce exploder's regenerative ability began to take effect. In the time it took to eat such a big meal, the bones in his arms, which were the most severely broken, had recovered by 30%. The food that had just entered his stomach was being rapidly digested. He didn't know when Lioli would be done, but there was definitely no harm in recovering as soon as possible. "What are the two of you doing here?" At this moment, a low and angry shout came from the entrance of the dungeon. Long Dingtian and Golden Flower Granny shivered and hurriedly threw the food in their hands to the ground. Chen Guang could even see Long Dingtian hiding his greasy hands behind his back and rubbing them on the back of his clothes. If he remembered correctly, when he was captured yesterday, Long Dingtian had forced Abbess Xan Yuan and Wu Qingming back with 2 punches. At that time, the cultivation dissipation powder should have just started to take effect. This meant that Long Dingtian's personal strength should be above 6 swords sex Zhuge. He was on the same level as poison sex demonic Jiao and dark sex evil monarch Yu. He was slightly stronger than Daoist Song Song and fist sex Master Pan. Later, when he conversed with demonic Jiao and evil monarch Yu, he was neither servile nor overbearing. Both parties were indeed on the same level. On the other hand, Golden Flower Granny was indeed one of the dark sect's 4 great guardians. It seemed that it was because of her good relationship with Long Dingtian that she had a relatively high status in the dark sect. Since this person could make Long Dingtian so nervous, didn't it mean that the person's identity was not simple? Ever since they were captured, Chen Guang had heard the 3 words Mr. Ing from their mouths more than once. It seemed that he was finally going to meet the real mastermind behind the scenes. I want to see what kind of person this Mr. Ing is and whether he has 3 heads and 6 arms. Thinking about how this guy had played him in circles with his schemes, he was really infuriated. This time, he had really suffered a terrible defeat. If it wasn't for the flash of inspiration at the crucial moment that saved the lives of the 2 seniors, he would really have been consigned to eternal damnation this time. Mr. Ing. Greetings, Mr. Ing. As the black figure walked closer, Long Ding Tian and Golden Flower Granny bowed to greet him. Mr. Ing snorted. Look at you 2 idiots. Just a few words from Qin Guang and you've provoked him to the point of bursting? Hurry up and get lost. Long Ding Tian and Golden Flower Granny quickly shrunk their necks and ran out. Chen Guang tilted his head and sized up this extremely mysterious Mr. Ing. At this moment he felt very strange. He knew that this person was likely to be the mastermind behind all the conspiracies and should be in existence like a big boss. But what was very strange was that although he couldn't see his face, his subconscious subconsciously wanted to despise him. No, to be precise, it should be contempt. This kind of emotion appeared out of nowhere. But it was deeply rooted, as if it came from the most primitive instinct in the depths of one's heart. It simply couldn't be influenced by ordinary thinking. Chen Guang felt that at this moment he was probably a little like the king of beasts at the top of the food chain, a fierce tiger, looking down on a trembling little white rabbit. He simply couldn't understand. Although the old man was very confident, although the old man had been waiting for Lioli to pull him ashore, but I shouldn't be so blindly confident to this point, right? No, what exactly is wrong? Logically speaking, I'm clearly lying on the chopping board, and I'm the fish on the chopping board, right? What kind of *T was I pretending to be when I let go of myself? Chen Guang was sizing up Mr. Ing, and he was also sizing up Chen Guang. At this moment, the person's mind kept recalling the scene of Chen Guang destroying the sky with a flip of his palm and shaking the earth with a flip of his palm. Until today, the impact that he received at that moment was still unforgettable. He looked calm, but he was extremely nervous in his heart. He was also trying hard to test Chen Guang's situation, wanting to know if he was really as weak as he looked. Finally, Mr. Ing was sure of his thoughts. Chapter 895. Chen Guang, I didn't expect you to end up like this. How is it? It doesn't feel good to be a prisoner, right? That person suddenly spoke. His tone was calm, but there was a lingering sense of pride in it. He seemed to be trying his best to suppress and conceal it, but because he was too proud of himself, he couldn't control it. At this moment, Chen Guang couldn't be bothered to retort. You're a boss character, so at the very least, you should be a little more composed. You're beaming with joy, and I've completely lost control of myself, so it's awkward. I don't want to be like this, but I can't control myself. Mr. Ing? Chen Guang asked tentatively. As he asked, he was thinking in his heart. This guy is not Mr. Ing. This guy is not Mr. Ing. How could I be tricked by this kind of person? This is too embarrassing. That's right. It's me. Mr. Ing answered without hesitation. If not for his hands being tied, Chen Guang really wanted to cover his face. Don't be so direct with your answer. Fine, you win this time. What do you want? Do you think you can be like those ancient emperors after killing me in Wunwun? You can rise up and command the masses to rule the world? Wake up, please open your eyes and look at what era it is now. What era is it now? Why are you still resorting to such meaningless schemes? I suggest you hurry up and get married, have a son, and then start training him now. When he turns 18, send him to Renmin University or the School of Politics. When he graduates from college, you can escort him all the way to become a civil servant. In about 30 to 40 years, you might be able to fight for the world. If not, you can also look at the history of companies like Apple, Microsoft, Goldman Sachs, ARM, or Samsung. You can try to catch up with the trend and try to earn some capital. Invest more and do business well. In a few years or 10 years, you will own a company worth trillions. Isn't that better than living on the edge of a knife and plotting against humanity? Oh, I heard that Poison Clan and Dark Clan are quite rich in the past. For the Wen family, a few billion isn't a big deal. You shouldn't be any worse off, right? If you really want to experience the feeling of being an emperor, I suggest you choose a small country that is slightly more remote. Even if you buy an island, it's not a big deal. Even if you kill me and Wenwen, it's useless. Right now, others still have scruples. If you really provoke them, can you withstand the power of a nuclear bomb? Chen Guang instantly became a chatterbox. It wasn't that he had nothing better to do, but the more he talked, the more he could arouse the other party's interest. The more he spoke, the more information he revealed. It was better than this situation where he knew so much about her and she did not even know his surname or his name. Shut up, right Chen? Mr. Ing suddenly roared and interrupted Chen Guang. All right. Since you don't want to hear it, I won't say it. Chen Guang replied casually. Suddenly, he came back to his senses and felt that something was wrong. What did he call me? Right Chen? Holy shit. What's going on? Seeing Chen Guang's expression changed, Mr. Ing knew that he guessed right. He suddenly opened his cloak. A middle-aged man's face full of cracks and black fog appeared in the light of the basement. He grinned at Chen Guang. Ha! Do you think you can fool everyone? You can't believe it, right? I am Mr. Ing. Mr. Ing is me. Now you should know me, right? Chen Guang turned his head and looked at him. After a long while, Chen Guang said, "To be honest, I still don't know you." Mr. Ing, who was the middle-aged man, was suddenly stunned. You don't know me? You turned me into a stray dog, you took everything from me, and now you tell me that you don't know me? Chen Guang's mind was filled with hundreds of thousands of questions. Are you famous? Why should I know you? I haven't taken anything from anyone, right? What shocked him the most was that this person actually called him Right Chin. Up until now, he had only officially used the name Right Chin in the Sea of Time and the Second Punishment Realm's Dolua world. Even though his real name was translated into English, this person looked like a Wuxia person. There was no reason for him to use a foreign language. He must know something. That person's emotions gradually went out of control, and he completely fell into a state of rage. At this moment, the earth-paced exploder ability in Chen Guang's body suddenly shook, and his pupils immediately widened. It appeared. That familiar feeling was exactly the same as the one he felt in the morgue the day before yesterday. It was similar to the earth elemental ability of the Broken World Saint clan. It was actually on this person. At this moment, Chen Guang was shocked, but also felt that it was natural. Mr. Ing saw that Chen Guang's expression changed again, and thought that he finally remembered something. He sneered and said, "It seems that you were pretending to be crazy just now. I was almost fooled by you. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have failed on the verge of success. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have lost a good situation overnight. Have you always wondered why only the Wen family appeared among the three big aristocratic families, and why the Chu family and Xing family were nowhere to be seen? Let me tell you now. The people from the Chu family and Xing family are already dead souls in my hands. I only needed one painting scroll from the Wen family to gather the three great skills, and I would be able to command the martial world. Give me another 10 years, and I would be able to replace those old fools in Yanjing. If it wasn't for you..." Chen Guang ignored him and asked doubtfully, "The Broken World Saint clan. You still haven't remembered who I am. Can't you just say it? Why do you have to make me guess? Old man, Ouyang Tianxing." Chen Guang dragged the word out, and then stopped abruptly. F***CK, you're that unlucky director of the Special Affairs Bureau. That's right, it's me. Now do you know why I hate you to the core? If it wasn't for you, how would those old fools in Yanjing dare to fall out with me? It was useless to know his identity. Chen Guang was more puzzled about how this fellow obtained the ability of the Broken World Saint clan and why would he call out his great sorcerer's real name. Alright. It's all my fault. Well now. Ouyang Tianxing was about to get angry again when he saw Chen Guang's nonchalant expression. However, he suddenly laughed when he saw a trace of mockery in Chen Guang's eyes. I nearly fell for your trick. You're purposely trying to infuriate me so that I will kill you, right? No wonder Long Ding Tian said that they were afraid that you would starve to death. I thought those two fools were using their authority to torture you. I didn't expect you to be so strong-willed. Chen Guang secretly rolled his eyes and couldn't be bothered to ridicule him. As the saying went, if the upper beam was not straight, the lower beam would be crooked. This nest of evil sects all had one thing in common. They were too good at divergent thinking. Chen Guang casually said, I didn't expect you to see through me. I'm so angry. Ouyang Tianxing was exasperated. He waved his hand, and a smear of earth element energy appeared out of nowhere. It turned into yellow sand that swept past Chen Guang's eyes and struck the sturdy steel wall of the dungeon. There was a muffled sound, and a fist-sized dent appeared on the 2-centimeter-thick steel wall. Chen Guang's eyes widened, and he was ecstatic in his heart. Although he didn't know how this fellow learned the Broken World Saint Clan's ultimate technique, his pure earth element energy was obviously a great supplement for him. The Earth Sauce Exploder's core, which had become extremely weak after coming out of the punishment realm and had been growing extremely slowly, was like a sponge that was thrown into the sea. It was great to eat hot pot in the winter and watermelon in the summer. How could you? Chen Guang put on an act and pretended to be stunned. At the same time, he was thinking hard about how he could make this fellow indulge in the process of showing off and give him great supplements. Ouyang Tianxing was finally satisfied when he saw that he had subdued him. Not bad, right, Qin? You didn't expect this, did you? Did you really think the Broken World Saint Clan was destroyed? Did you think no one in this world knew your identity as an outsider? You're wrong. Ridiculously wrong. I, Ouyang Tianxing, inherited the undying will of the Broken World Saint Clan. I must kill you. Thanks to you, I was able to obtain the Holy Clan's imprint. It was a blessing in disguise. I'm no longer immortal. I don't just want power. I want to be the ruler of this world. I want eternal life. I will make the Broken World Saint Clan's glory shine on every inch of this universe. I used to think of you as my greatest enemy, but you've disappointed me. Why did your power disappear after coming out of that world? The once arrogant elemental controller, right Chen, has such a day come for you? After I kill Wenwen, I'll kill you. I'll gather the 3 great techniques and the power of the Broken World Saint Clan. In time, no one or weapon in this world will be able to threaten me, Ouyang Tianxing, the last leader of the Broken World Saint Clan. Ouyang Tianxing laughed proudly. His entire body exploded from where he stood and turned into yellow sand that flew away. Chen Guang was very unwilling. He wanted to reach out and grab a handful of sand. Unfortunately, his hands were tied tightly. His bones had not recovered yet, so he could not break free from the strong hemp rope. Chen Guang was very angry. It was possible that when he was slaughtering the Broken World Saint Clan, this fellow was hiding in the punishment realm. He did not know how he was so lucky. After he came out, he did not lose his memory and even obtained the inheritance of the Broken World Saint Clan that he had created. Also, he was not one of the targets of his mission. Otherwise, he would have been crushed to death like an ant. I've really seen a ghost. How did you get so into character? The Broken World Saint Clan was created by the Heavenly Holy Grail, and so was Right Qin. But what the hell was an elemental controller? The old man was the Earth Paste Exploder, okay? Fine, I feel like the elemental controller is more imposing. In short, this idiot completely believed what happened in the punishment realm. He did not need to lie to himself. His beliefs were stronger than Xen Qin, Wu Miaowan, and Lu Fei, who had also retained their memories. In the past, this technique of transforming into yellow sand and teleporting through the air was like child's play to him. But now, the core of the exploder was still in its embryonic form. This concubine? Oh no, this old man couldn't do it. Forget it. At least he left some earth elemental power when he turned into yellow sand. Let me take another breath to calm down. Less than 20 seconds later, the yellow sand that Ouyang Tianxing had turned into returned. Chen Guang widened his eyes. What was this idiot trying to do? Under his dumbfounded gaze, the yellow sand did not say anything. He leaped to the ground, rolled up his black robe and ran. Damn it, this idiot forgot to take his clothes. Chen Guang looked at the lonely red briefs on the ground and shouted, I say, Ouyang Tianxing, your underwear is still on the ground. the yellow sand returned for the second time. He rolled up his underwear and ran. Although Chen Guang could not see his expression, he could imagine how embarrassed he was. Forget it. Anyway, it was not bad to take a few more breaths. It felt like his bones were recovering faster. Chapter 896. Although Ouyang Tianxing was so confident that he was about to explode on the spot, it was clear that his abilities were not as terrifying as imagined. Chen Guang could also see that although he could transform his body into yellow sand, the disparity between him and the 3 sacred race elders he had dealt with in the punishment realm couldn't be calculated. After he came out, he only retained a little bit of the strength of the bean paste explosion. It was already ridiculous that this fellow was stronger than him. There had to be a limit. Otherwise, he would not be so afraid of Wenwen now. It seemed like the mutation that happened to Wenwen had caused her cultivation to improve. If not for his existence, Wenwen would probably be the strongest inner force martial artist in history. Just like what Azure had said, although the inner force of humans could not break through the limits of the plane, it was still a rather exquisite cultivation technique. Ouyang Tianxing was a martial artist and was already very strong. He also obtained the ability of the world-shattering holy tribe. He was not stupid and should understand the logic behind it. Although he did not know what techniques the other 2 unlucky families, the Chu and Xing families had, it should not be worse than the painting scroll. The 3 great techniques and the ability of the world-shattering holy tribe were quite powerful. Chen Guang knew why he purposely came to show off in front of him. Since he really believed that the world-shattering holy tribe really existed, he also thought that he was the great magister Right Qin of the Dolua world. He had also seen him in his prime as the earth paste explosion in the Dolua world. He must be afraid that he was pretending to be weak and that he was still the invincible great magister. Hence, he came to see the situation. Perhaps he had prepared 2 plans. One of them was to confirm whether he had lost all his abilities. If he was sure, he would continue to use him as bait and carry out his plan to kill Wenwen. His other plan was probably to confirm that he was pretending to be weak and that he still had his abilities. Then he would immediately kowtow and beg him to give him a chance and spare his life. Once I turn on my old and sophisticated mode, thinking about these problems is too obvious. It's no fun at all. Lying on the metal bed, Chen Guang's stomach was bloated as he sensed the injuries on his bones swiftly recovering. At the same time, he was bored to death. At this point, it was useless for him to be anxious, and he could only wait for Lioli's master plan. Speaking of which, the old men in Yanjin were quite a failure. They picked someone from all over the place to set up the Special Affairs Bureau. Not only did they fail to achieve their goal of restraining inner force martial artists, but they also created a mentally retarded villain with malicious intentions. To be honest, if he hadn't gotten himself involved, he might have been able to do what he had said just now bit by bit. With his thorough preparation and astonishing strength, he might really be able to take advantage of the old master's trust in him to slowly replace the crown prince with a leopard cat, slowly replacing the people who held the scepter's authority with his own people. He should not have made the mistake of attacking the old man's family. In the past, Chen Guang had never understood why. At that time, he was just a commoner, unable to reach the heavens or land. There was nothing worth noticing about him. Later, he understood that it was because of Wenwen. But he couldn't blame her. The 2 of them met by chance, and they became best friends without any conflict of interest. Neither of them hoped to get anything from the other. It was just because the tortoise liked the mung bean, and they found each other pleasing to the eye. The purer the relationship, the longer it lasted. The 2 of them were able to get along with each other from the time they met in their first year of university. It was a pity that their simple friendship at that time was still targeted by others. Ouyang Tianxing did not do much to Chen Guang's family, and there were no irreparable casualties. To him, he might have just casually arranged for 2 people to cause a small case of food poisoning in Chen Guang's hot pot restaurant. But from then on, Chen Guang's life changed. The wealthy Chen family had to take on responsibilities that they shouldn't have because of the Special Affairs Bureau's interference. Perhaps Ouyang Tianxing had already seen through Chen Guang's character when he made his move. He knew that Chen Guang was someone who would suffer for his pride. He also knew that Wen Wen would be troubled by Chen Guang's matter, but she would not help him directly because of her pride. After that, Wen Wen might have spent most of her energy on helping Chen Guang find out more about the hot pot poisoning incident. Perhaps Ouyang Tianxing had spent a lot of energy to deal with the Chu family and the Xing family of the three aristocratic families, plotting and completing his plans bit by bit. His attack on the Chen family's hot pot restaurant in Lelai County might have been one of his many schemes to divert the attention of the powerful Wen family. To Ouyang Tianxing, such an insignificant scheme was worse than choking on a mouthful of soup. But just like how one day in heaven was 1 year on earth, when a deity knocked over a wine cup, there would be heavy rain and floods for 3 years in the mortal world. Ouyang Tianxing's casual action had completely destroyed the Chen family and Chen Guang's life. Chen Guang used a whole year to recover his family, and that was with the help of the heavenly Holy Grail. If he was just an ordinary person without Lu Li's help, if he lived stubbornly and refused to accept help from others, perhaps he would have to wait for many years. Perhaps he would have to wait for many more years. Lin Jingwei really couldn't bear to see him in such dire straits. The Wen family might be like the other two aristocratic families, quietly falling into Ouyang Tianxing's hands. At that time, Chen Guang and his family could be reborn. Perhaps his mother would have passed away because she could not afford to treat her illness by then. A few million was a small matter to the upper class, where money made money. But to ordinary people, it was a goal that could only be achieved after a lifetime of hard work. When Chen Guang thought of that kind of life, he felt a chill down his spine. So how could he not hate? What he hated more was Ouyang Tianxing's cruelty and cold-bloodedness. At that time, he did not want to completely anger Wen Wen, so his family was only touched lightly by him. But later, when he felt that it was necessary, he slaughtered 25 families without hesitation. But now, Ouyang Tianxing might be regretting it. Chen Guang knew that he must have become a special existence in Ouyang Tianxing's heart. Perhaps he was even more special than Wen Wen. After all, I'm the great sorcerer Right Chen from another world. Sigh. Once this human spirit mode is activated, there's really no stopping. Lu Li, hurry up, I'm getting a little impatient. In the camp by Ninghai Lake, after most people left voluntarily or unwillingly, only less than 20 people, including Xin Qin and Wu Miaowan, stayed. The two little girls sat in front of the grave that had just been covered with soil. They looked at each other speechlessly, their eyes red and their throats choked. The two of them did not expect that their teacher, who was almost omnipotent in their hearts, would leave just like that. The two of them lost their parents when they were young and grew up with their teacher. Their relationship was like that of a teacher or a mother. With Abbess Xian Yuan and Wu Qingming's original age and skills, they would not live to 100 years old, but at least have a few decades to live. But suddenly, the sky above Xin Qin and Wu Miaowan's heads collapsed. The two of them had done a good job to be able to endure the pain and resolutely lead the team to stay. Daoist Vasp Kalo sat beside the two of them and said, "Deputy Bureau Chiefs, you don't have to be too sad. For us martial artists, although we don't roam the Jianghu all year round like in the past, freely repaying gratitude and avenging enmity, but in fact, we still have to put our heads on our waists, licking the blood of our swords. It can't be said that our days are precarious, but if we often walk by the river, it's inevitable that our shoes will get wet. Although sect leader Xian and sect leader Wu are women, they are quite heroic and have the demeanor of a woman. In the end, they did not ruin their reputation as Jianghu women." Old Man Panda also sat down. "Vasp Kalo and Oxnose are right. I still remember many years ago when your teacher was about the same age as you are now. Coincidentally, the country had just been established, and the major sects in Jianghu were fighting for power and profit. At that time, although the master of the two bureau chiefs came from a small family, he was upright in his conduct, upheld justice, and was not afraid of the strong. He punished some evildoers who disregarded human life and left a good name in Jianghu. He even killed his way from a bone strength master to a skin strength master. At that time, I also met sect leader Xian and sect leader Wu a few times. In the blink of an eye, dozens of years have passed. Time really flies. Speaking of which, the two of you only left 2 years earlier than me and Oxnose. Daoist Vasp Kalo glared at Panda. Your panda face is Oxnose. Your whole family is Oxnose. But don't worry, Deputy Bureau Chiefs. Since Master Pan and I have decided to stay, we have made up our minds. If it really gets to the point of no return, the two of us will find a way to save your lives. Thousand Despair Sect and Thousand Flowers Valley are different. Large sects like us can't afford to suffer anymore. Xin Qin and Wu Miaoan understood, but they did not know what to say. Just as the two seniors had said, with the death of their teacher, as the eldest disciple of the sect, the burden of taking care of the hundreds of people in the huge sect fell on their shoulders. Their teacher had planned and worked hard when he was alive, and there was only one goal: to strengthen the sect. Now that the two of them were in danger, if they died here, they would be considered disloyal, unfilial, and unjust. But when the two of them thought of Qin Guang, who had been kidnapped, they became even more worried. Although he was invincible in the soul world, his magic could only conjure up a sesame-sized ball. Although he was a genius in cultivating inner force, no matter how talented he needed time to grow. He was only at the beginner level of muscle force. If he fell into the hands of those people, wouldn't he be at their mercy? This was really worrying until his hair turned white. At this moment, a cold voice came from behind them. This is the tomb of sect leader Xian of Thousand Despair Sect and sect leader Wu of Thousand Flowers Valley, right? Everyone turned around and saw a lady in white standing proudly in front of them. She was looking at them with a calm gaze. Strangely, although she was standing there without moving, everyone present, including experts like Daoist Vasp Kalo, felt that her figure seemed to be moving left and right, and they could not see her clearly. Apart from that, the autumn wind that was blowing nonstop by the lake seemed to freeze when it reached her. Her clothes were hanging straight down, and it was as if time had stopped around her. She was not dressed like a fairy, and the long pitch-black saber hanging on her back, which was almost as tall as she was, showed that she was not a soft-hearted person. But at this moment, everyone in front of the tombstone could not help but feel that this lady did not belong to this world. She was like a fairy. When one was here, she had become so strong. Chapter 897. Wenwen tried hard to make her expression look softer. However, the anxiety and anger in her heart made this usually simple task extremely difficult. But when she saw the two new graves and the two red-eyed girls in front of the tombstones, the unhappiness in her heart finally dissipated a little, but not much. She had originally planned to scold them harshly. Why did they accompany Qin Guang in his madness? Why did they come here? Why did they allow Qin Guang to be kidnapped under the eyes of so many people? She really wanted to scold these people for being trash and idiots. But now she couldn't scold them. In fact, she was very clear that if she really had to find someone to scold, it would definitely be that guy, Qin Guang. I've already said it before. Since everything started with me and I have the ability to do so, of course I should be the one to end everything with my own hands, and I'll include you as well. I know the anger in your heart, and I also understand your feelings of wanting to do something, but this is not necessary. Now it's great, you overestimated yourself and came here, and then you were captured alive. What should I do? Clearly, with my strength, it was something that could be easily done, but suddenly the difficulty has increased infinitely. Perhaps if I only rely on my own strength to find their headquarters, it will not be done in a day or two, and perhaps I can no longer obtain the antidote before my father dies of the poison, but it is still better than being held hostage by the other party. Can I not care about your life and death? But if the other party uses your life to threaten me, forcing me to either cripple my own martial arts or watch you die, what should I do? With things turning out like this, Wenwen couldn't help but be angry. But in the end, things had come to this, and what was done could not be undone. Wenwen knew that blaming anyone would not change the truth, not to mention that the two Jianghu seniors had paid the price with their lives. She could not continue to pour salt on the hearts of the two poor girls that were riddled with holes, nor could she blame the Jianghu seniors who sacrificed their lives to protect Qin Guang. Wenwen suddenly moved. The others did not see how she moved, but she suddenly appeared in front of the grave as if the ground had shrunk to an inch. She quickly bowed and said in a clear voice, "Junior Wenwen represents Chen Guang to bow to the two seniors." The strange thing was, she was obviously talking to the tombstone, but Taoist Song Song and Xianxia felt she was talking to them. In Jianghu, it was hard to find a Wenzhong realm martial artist in 100 years. For example, Taoist Vasp Kalo's plaincloth sect. In these few hundred years, there were only 3 pure heart realm strong practitioners who surpassed the skin strength. No one present could understand Wenwen's realm. She seemed to be talking casually, but her voice had an inexplicable sense of insight into people's hearts. Taoist Vasp Kalo opened his mouth wide, unable to close it for a long time. He could not hide his shock. At the individual military drill, he had seen Wenwen brandishing the butcher's knife against the killers of Poison Sect and Dark Sect. At that time, he was already shocked by her extremely powerful skills. He did not expect that in such a short period of time, she actually improved a few steps. Some people were right, this demoness was indeed a demoness. How did she train? This was completely unreasonable. According to the sect's ancient records, plaincloth sect's almost invincible founder may not be her opponent, but the person with the most complicated feelings right now was still Xianxia. She used to be secretly jealous of Qin Guang's special care for Wenwen, even subconsciously compared her in secret, and sometimes said some strange things. However, it was rare for her to be so close to this peerless genius who was known as the once-in-a-hundred-years genius in Jianghu. She could feel the aura of a powerful expert that she seemed to have returned to her natural state but was actually constantly exuding. Even the inner strength in her dantian was affected by her and began to circulate on its own at a much faster speed than usual. Xianxia really did not want to admit it, but she could not help but feel a little ashamed of her own inferiority. Just like Qin Guang, the great sorcerer who could destroy the world in his previous life, and the invincible genius who sat on the sacred body of elements in this life, these two were a match made in heaven, so perfect that it made people jealous. No wonder he was always thinking about Wenwen. If I was a man, I would also be unable to extricate myself from falling in love with such a strange woman, right? Sister Xianxia, don't worry too much, I will save that guy. She seemed to be talking. Was she talking to me? Sweetheart, sect leader Wen is talking to you. Wu Miaowan, who was beside her, calmed down faster and poked Xianxia's waist. Xianxia suddenly came back to her senses. Oh. All right. Wenwen forced a smile. This guy is a little troublesome, but as long as I don't die, he won't have to worry about his life. I don't know where the people from Six Swords sect got the courage to mix with the evil sects, but it doesn't matter. Demon Sovereign Jiao and Evil Monarch Yu are full of tricks. They think that they have set up a dragon's pool and tiger's den for me, but I will let them understand that in the face of absolute power, all tricks are futile. Daoist Vasp Kalo and Panda said in unison, "That's right. Sect leader Wen's martial arts are unparalleled, unprecedented." Wenwen continued, "Sigh, it's also Qin Guang, that idiot, who only knows how to be hot-headed and cause trouble for me. Otherwise, this matter wouldn't have been so troublesome." You can't blame it all on Qin Guang, it's all my fault. If I had discovered that Long Dingtun was up to no good, Chief Chen wouldn't have fallen for it. Unexpectedly, Xianxia interrupted Wenwen's words. Wenwen turned around and looked at her with a complicated smile on her face. Xianxia was looking at Wenwen, and Wenwen was also looking at Xianxia. Wenwen already knew about the existence of Xianxia and Wu Miaowan. When she had nothing better to do, she was also interested in the things that happened around Qin Guang. She already knew that Qin Guang had 2 dedicated deputy chiefs by his side. Perhaps it was because she loved the house and its crow, but people who didn't understand Qin Guang didn't think that there was anything good about him. But after getting close to him, Wenwen knew that he had an inexplicable and irresistible lethality towards girls. After coming here, she took a few more looks and purposely probed. Xianxia, this little girl, had indeed subconsciously started to protect Qin Guang. When she called her little sister, she agreed without any qualms. There was indeed a reason behind it. Being stared at by Wenwen, Xianxia's face turned red. She didn't know what she was embarrassed about. She called me little sister, maybe she found out something? Sigh, forget it. In any case, Chen Guang was quite a playboy. On the other side, Wenwen confirmed her suspicions but didn't ask further. Instead, she changed the topic. Everyone, I'll make it short. If Chen Guang wasn't captured, this matter might be simpler. The people from Poison Sect and Dark Sect invited me to a duel at the top of a mountain about 70 miles west of here. On the way here just now, I saw more than 10 experts at the peak of Skin Force. They are all highly respected and skilled seniors in Jianghu. I'm thinking that since the situation has changed, I might need everyone's help. Daoist Vasp Kalo didn't put on the airs of a senior expert in front of Wenwen. He lowered his head and bowed. Since this humble Daoist has stayed here to save Chief Chen, since sect leader Wen has invited me, this humble Daoist is duty-bound. Panda also said in a clear voice, of course. Wenwen nodded in satisfaction. Chen Guang's subordinates in Guangding General Headquarters were really loyal. However, it could also be that these seniors in Jianghu could see the situation clearly. They knew that technology was advancing day by day, and that martial arts alone could no longer dominate the world. Especially after China's military held individual military exercises, the people in Jianghu who were there were all shocked by the highly advanced individual weapons. This was the trend of history that couldn't be stopped or defied. Wenwen also didn't understand why the two evil sects, Six Sword Sect and Longding Tian, had the guts to go against the trend of history in such a situation. She vaguely knew that there was an expert behind this, but she didn't know who it was. Wenwen also didn't think that the so-called expert could pose any threat to her. When Xianxia and Wu Miaowan saw this, although they felt that something was wrong, they still became spirited. Xianxia said in a clear voice, I'll go too. Wu Miaowan ran back into the tent and carried her medicine box. Seniors, although my skills aren't good, my medical skills have been passed down by my master. Perhaps I can help everyone. Unexpectedly, Wenwen suddenly withdrew the smile on her face and said in a slightly cold tone, the two of you have a good idea, but I think we should forget about this matter. Xianxia didn't understand. Why? Wu Miaowan clenched the strap of her medicine box. She also didn't understand. Everything was fine just now. Why did sect leader Wen suddenly change her attitude? All the seniors here are experts in skin strength. The two of you are only in bone strength. How can you be of any help? When it comes to a life and death battle, the evil sects have the advantage in numbers. Do you think we'll have to split people to cover you? According to my original plan, I should go alone. Now that I have no choice, I need the help of all the seniors. As for the two of you, scram as far as you can. Don't be a burden. Unlike the others who maintained respect for Xianxia and Wu Miaowan, the two deputy directors, Wenwen had the confidence to speak as the world's #1 expert. When Daoist Xianxia and the others saw this, they thought that this was a woman's world and it wasn't appropriate to interrupt. About 10 minutes later, everyone was ready to set off. Wenwen walked at the front with the black saber on her back. Behind her were dozens of experts from various sections. Xianxia and Wu Miaowan pursed their lips and followed behind the crowd unwillingly. After walking for a few miles, Wenwen finally couldn't take it anymore. She turned around and stepped on the void, landing in front of Xianxia and Wu Miaowan as if she was flying. With a clang, she unsheathed the black saber and slashed it on the ground. Dust flew everywhere. A 10 feet long and a meter-deep ravine appeared in front of Xianxia and Wu Miaowan. Both of you, I'll say this first. This ravine is the boundary. If the two of you dare to cross it again, don't blame me for being impolite. Xianxia panicked. How can you do this? Wu Miaowan also bit her lip hard. Too much, too much. Wenwen sheathed her saber. Without another word, she turned around and left. That, sect leader Wen, there's something I don't know if it's appropriate to say. Daoist Xianxia couldn't stand it anymore. He waited until they were far away before he cautiously spoke. Wenwen, however, kept her sharp edge and cupped her hands at Daoist Xianxia. Senior Xianxia, I didn't mean to make things difficult for the two of them. Their master is already dead, and they really can't afford to suffer anymore. This time, the other party has hostages. I actually don't have the confidence to win. I'm not afraid to say it out loud. I'm also prepared to die. Wenwen didn't say it clearly. If her death could really be exchanged for Qin Guang and her father's antidote, she could accept it. Chapter 898. At this moment, Qin Guang, who was taken as a hostage, was still lying on the iron bed in the dungeon. However, the injuries on his bones had already healed, and he was just lying there on purpose. The iron door of the dungeon creaked open, and a delicate-looking young man appeared in the dungeon. He was holding a recording pen in his hand, and there were two people standing behind him. Qin Guang recognized these two people. One of them was the deputy leader of Dark Clan, Ghost Shadow, who had forced Xan Yuan and Wu Qingming to their deaths. The other person seemed to be called Jiu He. Qin Guang's heart skipped a beat when he saw this scene. Wenwen is here. They want me to say something to make Wenwen submit. Jiu Li, let him read the script. Ghost Shadow said with his unique hoarse voice, laughing strangely. That delicate-looking young man pulled his collar and came forward excitedly. He first played the recording pen beside Qin Guang's head, then took out a piece of paper and waved it in front of Qin Guang. Read it. Qin Guang looked up and rolled his eyes. This script was worth 800 yuan a month? To my dearest Wenwen, a day without seeing you feels like 3 years. I'm now a guest in the mountains, and I've been eating and drinking well. I miss you very much, and I wonder if you've gotten thinner or fatter. What the heck is this? The seniors of Poison Clan and Dark Clan are kind people, and I also approve of their entrepreneurial ideas. Entrepreneurial ideas? Damn it. Can you be more professional? Anyway, I really don't want to die. Save me. Your change of topic is too stiff. Just a second ago, you were eating and drinking well, and the next second, you don't want to die. Qin Guang turned his head silently. Brother, you were taught Chinese by a PE teacher in primary school, right? What the hell are you writing? All right, I know what you want me to record. Isn't it just to scream for help, so that Wenwen can't fight back and can only obediently stretch out her neck to be killed? Dream on. Get lost. With that, Qin Guang turned his face away, too lazy to pay any more attention to this idiot. Unexpectedly, this person called Jiu Li was not angry after being scolded. Instead, she put away the recording pen with a smile. Is that okay? Jiu He asked from the side. Jiu Li nodded. It's almost done. I've already recorded Qin Guang's voice. I'll go back and synthesize it. It should be enough to pass off as genuine. Qin Guang's eyes widened as he suddenly realized that he had been tricked. Jiu Li was very proud. Chief Qin, you didn't expect this, right? Ever since I was young, I've liked doing these things. Currently, apart from practicing martial arts, I'm just hanging around on Bilibili. I'm sorry, I'm one of the uploaders of Bilibili's Wang Situ rap. At that moment, Qin Guang was dumbfounded. What the F***CK? Miscalculation. Who would have thought that there would be a weirdo like Bilibili's uploader among the evil martial artists? When they left triumphantly, Qin Guang immediately became anxious. Although he didn't know how this guy planned to synthesize his voice, seeing how confident he was, he definitely had something up his sleeve. Qin Guang had seen a lot of Wang Situ's ghostly works on Bilibili, so he knew how powerful they were. Lord Luli, I still need to save you. Hurry and save me. Shut up. It'll be tomorrow morning at the soonest. Good luck. Unexpectedly, Lioli actually replied this time, and her voice revealed a trace of exhaustion. Can it be faster? A man who was never content was like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. He might have been able to remain calm when he knew nothing, but now that he knew the exact time, he naturally wanted more. This was the experience that Qin Guang had come to after dealing with Lu Li for so long. Lord Lu Li's potential was like a chasm. There would always be a gap. Do you want to experience the incomplete beauty of the incomplete version of the world in a cup that can't be resurrected? If you're not careful, you'll also lose your own beauty. That's right, tonight's night is so beautiful that I'll forget to go home. Sorry, it's daytime outside. Oh! Up until now, Chen Guang couldn't be bothered to count how many times he had died in the world in a cup. In the past, he had died n times just to learn a foreign language, and he had exploded countless times just to learn acting, not to mention that he was learning inner force for close quarters combat this time. If he went in without the ability to resurrect himself, wouldn't that be tantamount to throwing his life away? Although he had always been good at causing trouble, courting death didn't mean that he was going to die. Courting death was good, but he couldn't be greedy and had to be measured. On the other side, although Wang Lin had forced Xianxia and Wu Miaowan away, the two deputy directors were not easy to deal with. They followed far behind, sneaking around like thieves. This woman is so annoying. She thinks she can climb all over us sisters just because she's so capable. So infuriating. Wu Miaowan grumbled angrily as she glared at the figure in the distance in front of her. Seeing that Xianxia ignored her, she slammed her palm on the tree next to her. Too much, too much. Xianxia saw that Wu Miaowan was not done and said helplessly, "She's just trying to save people. Our skills are indeed far from theirs." "I understand that, but I just don't feel comfortable. Can't we just talk nicely?" Xianxia didn't speak up for Wang Lin anymore. It was obvious that she thought the same way. Wang Lin didn't turn around, but she was well aware of the two little tails behind her. "Sai, Senior Vasp Kalo, why don't we trouble you to invite those two to come along with us?" Daoist Master Vasp Kalo felt relieved and quickly turned around to ask for help. When everyone gathered again, Wang Lin took the initiative to explain, "I'm sorry, the two of you. I originally thought that this trip would be extremely dangerous. Apart from me, the other seniors are all at skin force and above. If we were to be defeated and run, they would have a higher chance of escaping. The two of you, on the other hand, would almost certainly die. What I did earlier was to make the two of you back off. However, since the two of you are so determined, I won't force you to be a good person. Instead of letting the two of you follow behind, why don't you come with us? It'll be safer." Although her explanation was very stiff, Xianxia and Wu Miaowan felt much better when they heard it. "Sect leader Wen, Qin Guang's matter is both our matter and yours. Moreover, we have a blood feud with our sect. We can't just stand by and watch." Wu Miaowan nodded. "That's right. Sect leader Wen, don't worry. The two of us promise not to drag you down." Wang Lin reluctantly agreed. She raised her head to look at the gradually setting sun and estimated the time in her mind. If they rushed like this, they would probably arrive at the appointed location the next morning. If she followed her previous plan, it would be impossible for her to accept the other party's challenge. The other party was extremely crafty and cunning. Only the heavens knew what kind of trap they would lay in advance. Originally, the enemy was in the dark while she was in the dark. She was alone. If she didn't consider the fact that her father's poison was acting up, she should have had the advantage. But now, the other party had laid out an inescapable net. She knew it was a trap, but she had no choice but to fall into it. No one knew what was waiting for her on the other side. Wang Lin couldn't think of a way to save him if the other party used Qin Guang's life as a hostage. She didn't have the slightest bit of confidence. There was an indescribable bitterness in her heart. At this moment, a bullet whizzed over from the horizon. It didn't land on anyone, but hit right under Wang Lin's feet. The others jumped in fright and instinctively jumped back. Wang Lin looked down and heard Qin Guang's voice coming from the bullet. Help me. They want to kill me. I don't want to die." Qin Guang's mournful scream resounded in the valley. It made people sad and shed tears. Everyone looked at each other. "Although we know that Chief Qin is a hostage right now, isn't your scream a little too miserable? Boss, you're so spineless. How can we bear it?" This can't be what he said. Wang Lin and Xianxia said in unison. The two women looked at each other. Wang Lin smiled knowingly, while Xianxia turned her face away guiltily. Obviously, the two of them knew Qin Guang's character very well. Although he was usually not a proper person, he was more principled than the average person when it came to this kind of big right and wrong. Even if he really wanted to ask for help and beg for mercy, it wouldn't be in such a tone of fear. Instead, it would be with some playfulness. That guy was a coquettish B***th who had no moral integrity and vulgarity carved into his bones. He would never really say something like that. This recording must have been faked. But it was useless to realize this. Chen Guang was still a hostage in the hands of the other party. Time flew. Chen Guang was lying on the iron bed. It was not convenient for him to move, and he had nothing to do. To him, this kind of confinement was the greatest torture. Perhaps it was even worse than the soldiers in the army who were punished. At least those people could still move a little. Fortunately, he had dealt with the world in cup more than once or twice. Although he was in a state of mental blockade in the world in cup, he had eaten a lot of pork and gradually learned to snort like a pig. He didn't fall into a state of frenzy like the other people who were locked up. Instead, he simply closed his eyes and fell into a deep sleep. In a daze, Chen Guang felt that the iron bed under him was swaying, as if someone was moving it. Chen Guang slowly opened his eyes and gradually regained consciousness. The morning breeze blew on his face and the ankles under his trousers. It was chilly. His entire body was being moved up and down by the iron bed. It was like a young lady sitting in a bridal sedan. The difference was that a young lady was sitting in a bridal sedan waiting to be married, but Chen Guang was lying on the iron bed like a stretcher, waiting to be taken as a hostage. Chen Guang looked into the distance. The sun was like a mischievous child poking its head out to look at him. The sky was about to brighten. "Yo, Bureau Chief Chen is awake? Did you have a good sleep?" Long Dingtian was walking beside Chen Guang with his arms crossed. He had a face full of ridicule. "Where are we going?" Chen Guang asked despite knowing the answer. "We are going to your and sect master Wen's burial ground." Long Dingtian's tone was full of confidence and pride. Chen Guang didn't bother about him and continued to look at the other people. There were about 70 people. Among them were Demon Sovereign Jiao and Evil Monarch Yu, who he had seen before. There were also people like Zhuge Ling from the Six Sword sect. There were also some people that Chen Guang didn't have any impression of. That Mr. Ing had turned out in full force. Over 70 Pi Gene experts. Perhaps only the two young men who were carrying the iron bed weren't Pi Gene experts. He didn't see that Mr. Ing and he didn't know where he was. Chapter 899. How is it? Is our Shadow Alliance's strength worthy of Chief Chen's discerning eyes? Long Dingtian sized up Chen Guang's expression. When he saw that Chen Guang was stunned, he asked with interest. "It's all right. It's good that everyone is here." Chen Guang used a calm tone to reply indifferently, but he was counting the time in his heart. "Lord Lu Li, it's already morning. Damn it, I'm panicking now." When everyone arrived, the sun had yet to rise halfway. The pitiful old Master Guang was also thrown miserably to the side of the cliff like a piece of wind-blown cured meat. Then he saw the 70-odd people actually move in a flash. In the blink of an eye, they burrowed into the holes that had been dug at some point in time. Immediately after, dozens of pitch-black gun muzzles silently emerged from the cliff. Chen Guang was astonished. He had seen shameless people, but he had never seen such shameless people. "All of you are reputable experts in the pugilistic world, but you're actually hiding in a hole and shooting. This isn't appropriate, right?" Pharmacy by Lian. As expected of the former chief Ouyang Tianxing, he never took the normal path. Forget it, they should be thankful that they didn't bring out a bigger weapon. If it was just these guns, they shouldn't be able to take Wen's life. "Chen Guang, say it. When sect mistress Wen arrives, I will place my hand on your neck and request her to cripple her own martial arts. Furthermore, I will swear to the heavens that as long as she complies with my request, I will not only hand over her father's antidote, but I will also immediately release you. What choice do you think she will make?" Just as Chen Guang was cursing in his heart, Ouyang Tianxing's voice appeared beside him again. He was different from the last time they met. This time, he had wrapped himself up tightly. He probably didn't want anyone to see his monster-like face. "Of course she won't agree. Don't treat her as a fool. If a despicable person like you doesn't go back on your words, it would be a waste of all the melodramatic dramas that I brought her to watch." "You said I'm a despicable person? How much better are you? If it weren't for me, or if I were to disappear without a trace, You'd be the same as me in less than 10 years after you've stabilized your position in the General Bureau of Broken Light Order. Of course not. My life pursuit is much more meaningful than yours. Chen Guang didn't finish his sentence. You're just a pitiful person who lives in my fantasy. Really? Ouyang Tianxing smiled nonchalantly. One could see him shrugging through the cloak. Forget it. I won't provoke you anymore. It's meaningless. You can rest assured that I will give Wen a fair chance to fight me. I almost believed it. No, I'm serious. At least before yesterday, I still had some fear in my heart. But haven't you noticed that compared to yesterday, heaven and earth are a little different? Ouyang Tianxing turned around. His deep gaze seemed to pierce through the cloak and peer into Chen Guang's heart. With that reminder, Chen Guang frowned and turned to look at the sky. At the same time, he secretly activated his earth explosion ability. After a while, Chen Guang became more and more surprised. Ouyang Tianxing was right. The power of the Holy Grail, which was everywhere between heaven and earth, became even thicker. When the punishment realm first appeared, Chen Guang sensed that the entire world, and even the entire universe, was enveloped by the power of the Holy Grail. It turned the real world into the world in the Holy Grail. But after he completed the mission, the power of the Holy Grail retreated. He heard Azure say that after the real world and the world in the Holy Grail, which was later known as the real world, completely merged, the two worlds had an inseparable connection. The power of the Holy Grail could no longer be completely separated. It was just so thin that he, the owner of the Holy Grail, could not sense it. After that, the punishment realm appeared for the second time. The real world and the real world merged completely. The entire Earth, and even the entire universe, was completely merged and changed. Lu Fei's father, who was not in Utopia, had his memory tampered with easily. A mirror image of Utopia was created, and the people in Utopia were pulled into the punishment realm in the Holy Grail. After the second punishment realm was completed, although the real world was restored, Chen Guang had a vague feeling that something was wrong. Today, he finally understood. The two consecutive punishment realms allowed the real world to merge with the real world twice. The degree of merging was deeper each time, and the connection between the two became closer. Especially after the second time, even though the power of the Holy Grail was still receding like the tide, it was like ants had dug out a hole in a dam. There was still the power of the Holy Grail leaking out from the real world. Now, the concentration of the power of the Holy Grail had finally crossed a certain threshold. It went from undetectable to detectable. Perhaps it was just a seemingly negligible difference between 10 to the minus 10 power and 10 to the minus 9 power, but it was fundamentally different. This meant that the power of the Holy Grail had exceeded the minimum detection limit. It was just like when humans detected something, if the instrument could not detect it, they would treat it as if it did not exist. When the instrument could detect it, the quantitative change would trigger a qualitative change, and it would become something from nothing. In fact, this change was happening every day. It was just that he did not notice it before. Of course, Ouyang Tianxing could not detect the power of the Holy Grail. However, just like when he was near Utopia, the more concentrated the power of the Holy Grail, the more concentrated the elemental power around Utopia. The change that Ouyang Tianxing sensed was definitely elemental power. Although the current concentration could not be compared to before, it was enough for Ouyang Tianxing, who also had a superpower and claimed to be the successor of the World Shatterer Holy Lord, to recover his superpower to a large extent. Right, Chen? Now you should believe that I will fight Wen head-on, right? Although I don't know what happened, the Doluo world and our world seem to be connected. The elemental power is constantly surging over. I'm afraid that it won't be long before the elemental power in both worlds becomes the same. When that time comes, the mark that the Holy Clan left in my body will allow me to quickly recover to the strength of a top-tier warrior. As for now, it's time for me to use facts to tell everyone that I, Ouyang Tianxing, am not just a wise man who only knows how to scheme. I have unprecedented strength. The scene of me defeating Wen today will be recorded, and I will let everyone in the pugilistic world see it. I will also send a copy to those old fools in Beijing and have them wash their necks and wait. I will let them know that I, Ouyang Tianxing, am back. Of course, it's better to be safe than sorry. With you around, I am sure that I will win. Chen Guang, you are my trump card. Ouyang Tianxing's voice was filled with unconcealable confidence. Chen Guang didn't want to bother with this guy who was completely immersed in fanaticism. Forget it. Since that's what he planned to do, I don't have to worry about it. I was just worrying about how to pretend to be a corpse and pretend to be dead so that Wen wouldn't be held back by me. It was finally 8 in the morning. The sun was already halfway up. The morning sunlight shone on the ground and cast long shadows on the people who were walking over. Ouyang Tianxing stood on the peak of the mountain with his hands behind his back. He looked down at the people who were coming, as if he was a king waiting for his subjects to worship him. Under his instructions, the other evil sect martial artists who were hiding in the underground caves either tightened their grip on the guns in their hands or threw away the firearms that they looked down on like brooms on the ground. In their hands, they held onto the concealed weapons that they were good at. Why is Mr. Ng different from what we agreed on? The demoness of the Wen family is strong now. He should be hiding in here. We should act according to what we agreed on and give these people a show of strength, right? Demon Sovereign Jiao stepped on the sniper rifle. He didn't like this thing. If it wasn't for Mr. Ying's request, he would have preferred to fight 300 rounds with any random opponent. Evil Monarch Yu played with the weapon in his hands with interest. The things of the modern people do have some tricks. If this bullet hits us at close range, even the two of us will be in trouble. You don't have to worry for Mr. Ng. He has his own methods. Demon Sovereign Jiao swallowed his saliva. To be honest, the current Mr. Ng is really different from the past. Am I hallucinating? He's so King domineering. Although the two of us are considered experts, I really don't dare to face the demoness of the Wen family like he did. Evil Monarch Yu nodded. As he tried to aim the scope at Wen, he snorted. I don't dare either. I don't even know what rock this little girl came from. Traveling monk's son, a monster, a natural monster. At this moment, even the two sect masters had the same thoughts, much less the others. Wen first glared at evil Monarch Yu, who was aiming at her from the wall, causing this evil sect master to feel a chill in his heart. Then, he turned to look at Ouyang Tianxing on the mountain peak. This person must be the expert hiding behind the evil sects to guide them. He was rather surprised. He thought that he would continue hiding, or he would directly tie up Chen Guang somewhere and force him to submit. He never expected that he would dare to stand on the mountain peak like a true pugilistic world expert. Wen family sect master. Do you dare to fight with me? Ouyang Tianxing shouted. He lived like a thief for most of his life, carefully managing everything he had. Like an oil thief, he slowly nibbled away at the pugilistic world. Then, people watched as he built a tall building, and watched as his building collapsed. Then he fled like a stray dog. Then he watched as the Wen family, which he saw as a turtle in a jar, suddenly produced a peerless genius. No one could understand Ouyang Tianxing's extremely bitter mental journey. Even when he said those words, he couldn't believe it. Would I, Ouyang Tianxing, also have such a bright and upright day? After walking in the darkness for so long, he finally obtained unimaginable power. He could finally stand under the sunlight and feel so good. Wen flew up and unsheathed her blade. If you want to fight, I will fight for you. But where is the person? Where is the antidote? Ouyang Tianxing waved his hand, and Chen Guang's metal bed was placed vertically by the two young fellows. He opened his hand again, and a small white jade bottle appeared in his palm. The person is here, and the antidote is also here. But it depends on whether you have the life to take it. Wen landed on the ground, and stood about 10 meters in front of Ouyang Tianxing. Her inner strength surged out from her body, and black mist surged out from the black blade. I thought you would use Chen Guang's life to threaten me. Ha! You're looking down on me. My hands are more than enough to kill you. Chen Guang, who was confident that he would win, rolled his eyes silently. This person's ability aside, the thickness of his skin was as thick as mine. Wen sneered, then turned to look at Chen Guang. She tried her best to control her emotions and asked, "Are you all right?" Xen Qin and Wu Miaowan shouted in unison, "Chen Guang, how are you?" Chen Guang grinned. "Hey, I'm in peace now. Everything is fine." At that moment he shouted from the bottom of his heart, "Thief! I'm coming!" In the distance, where no one noticed, a seemingly ordinary glass cup suddenly burst out of the ground. Then, as if it had wings, it flew toward Chen Guang. Chen Guang's smile finally bloomed. "Oh my God! Lady Liuli, you finally made it." Liuli's voice was tired and excited. "I have good news for you." "Please speak." "I've succeeded in skipping levels again." "What do you mean?" "The heavenly immortal realm's heavenly clear sky, how is it?" "What? I don't quite understand." "If you want to cultivate inner strength, you have to at least reach the 4th level, the heavenly clear sky in a cup, but you've only reached the 2nd level, one-line sky." This empress spent a lot of effort, calculated meticulously, and coordinated with the Holy Grail, just like how you build Legos in this world. After carefully planning for a long time, this heavenly clear sky cup's heavenly immortal realm was finally built successfully. When the heavenly clear sky cup was activated, something happened. The fusion of the real world and your real world caused this heavenly clear sky to change, and it became the heavenly immortal cup's heavenly immortal realm at the same level as the transient sea. What you have to cultivate is an inner martial art that the 4th level can withstand. How is it? This empress is awesome, right? My sister, you're so strong. This is indeed a grand plan. If it wasn't for the fact that he was afraid of being seen through, old Master Guang would have been moved to tears. No wonder Liuli couldn't get away for so long. No wonder it was so difficult to carry out her grand plan. When he leveled up from spirit sky to one-line sky, the illusion in his mind was that he had walked to the edge of the universe. It was obvious how difficult it was for this unlucky Holy Grail to level up. Now, in order for him to cultivate inner strength, she had actually forcefully skipped 2 levels, skipped the 3rd level, Cloud Elephant Sky, and reached Heavenly Clear Sky. The difficulty was unimaginable. "I've always blamed you wrongly. Actually, you still love me." Chen Guang stared at Ouyang Tianxing's back fiercely. "Bastard, just you wait. When I reach Heavenly Clear Sky, I'll come back and show you why the flowers are so red." On the other side, Wenwen and Ouyang Tianxing were already exchanging blows at lightning speed. Chapter 900. Wenwen unsheathed the black cleaver. The inner force of the painting scroll gushed out from the 7 stars transformation in her elixir field, filling her body like a rainbow. A terrifying strength chi surged out from her body. With her as the center, the chi carried the mud and broken leaves on the top of the mountain and turned into a spiral, quickly spreading out in all directions. In an instant, it enveloped a radius of several dozen feet. In this spiral, the black gas that gushed out from the black cleaver mixed with the yellow sand, tearing apart every inch of the air. Daoist Song and Panda, who were standing not far behind Wenwen, quickly waved their hands when they saw the situation. Retreat! Wenwen's first move was already so powerful. Everyone was worried that if they continued to stand there, they would be scratched by her indiscriminate force. Touch would mean injury, touch would mean death. Even Daoist Song, who had been at the pinnacle of skin force for many years and had a lot of experience, did not dare to touch the tiger's whiskers. The difference in their realm was too great. They could not be mentioned in the same breath. But the group did not only retreat, they also observed the situation as they retreated. Before they came here, they discussed until their heads were dizzy. No one knew how Chen Guang would become a hostage. The worst outcome would be to not see him when they arrived at the scene. Right now, Chen Guang was tied to the metal bed, and there wasn't a better situation for him to be in. As long as they could save him, sect leader Wen would no longer be hindered. Then, they could defeat Ouyang Tianxing, who overestimated himself, and all the problems would be solved. When the secret of Mr. Ing finally introduced himself and admitted that he was Ouyang Tianxing, Xen Qin, Wu Miaowan, and Daoist Song were not too surprised. First, since things had come to this, there was no difference whether they were surprised or not. Second, the Special Affairs Bureau seemed to be assisting the Wuxia higher-ups in communicating with the martial artists, but the Special Affairs Bureau was actually crooked from the start. Moreover, when the Special Affairs Bureau was destroyed, Ouyang Tianxing fought his way out alone. He did not die. As one of the more upright ones among the 8 great sects, Daoist Vasp Kalo had crossed paths with Ouyang Tianxing a few times in the past, and boasted that he had a good understanding of this person's background. Daoist Vasp Kalo protected Xen Qin and Wu Miaowan as they retreated. He looked at Ouyang Tianxing, who was unmoving like a mountain, and said joyfully, "This Ouyang Tianxing is really overestimating himself. I really don't know where he gets his courage to fight sect leader when head-on." Panda, the fist tyrant, had the same opinion. This guy has been cautious his whole life, but now he's acting heroically for once. I wonder how many moves he can take. Right now, sect leader Wen's aura is at its peak, but Ouyang Tianxing has yet to accumulate his strength. He's going to die. That's right. I just don't know what else he has up his sleeve. Not to mention the martial artists from the Guangding headquarters, even the evil martial artists from the Shadow Alliance felt their hearts skip a beat. Although he knew that it was rare for Mr. Ing to be so bold, maybe he wanted to prove something, but which one was about to use her ultimate move? Wasn't he being too careless? Ignorant? Arrogant? That half of Wenwen's attention was on Qin Guang, and the other half on Ouyang Tianxing. Seeing that he was looking down on her, she thought to herself and spat. She then exerted strength in her legs, and with the tornado around her, she transformed into a black and yellow dragon and pounced forward. In the blink of an eye, the tornado that Wenwen had transformed into brought along a trail of dust and gravel, and appeared in front of Ouyang Tianxing. With a crisp clang, the tornado suddenly dispersed, leaving behind a long saber that was as black as ink. It left a flowing light in the air as it slashed at Ouyang Tianxing. The saber. It was extremely domineering. It was as fast as lightning. On this morning when the sun had just risen, in the eyes of the spectators, it was as if the light of the rising sun had been stolen. In this world, it was as if there was only this stunning saber left. Everyone who was watching felt as if time had slowed down at this moment. Everyone could clearly see the tornado that had suddenly dispersed, and Wenwen, who was dressed in white, slashed down from the sky with the black saber in her hand. This seemingly simple strike contained some sort of profound martial arts. The killing intent was overflowing to the extreme, but it also gave birth to a feeling of compassion for the state of the universe. Just like what was written in Wen Tianxiang's Song of Righteousness, which Wenwen used to enter the path, there was righteousness in heaven and earth. The buzzing sound grew louder, probably caused by the friction when the saber sliced through the air. 2 visible air currents were split into 2. In the blink of an eye, the black saber turned into a flowing light, and was about to slash Ouyang Tianxing's head. Bam! Ouyang Tianxing finally moved. He raised his left hand and pinched his thumb and middle finger. There was a flash of green light on his fingertip, and an invisible force was born from his fingertip. It ignored the long saber that was slashing down, and the force went straight for Wenwen's chest. At the same time, he raised his right hand into the shape of a claw. There seemed to be black scales on his fingers and the back of his hand, but they were actually formed by the force. His right claw did not dodge, and it went straight for the black saber. There was a loud clang. Ouyang Tianxing's right claw and the black saber collided, but the saber did not cut off his hand as easily as many people had imagined. Wenwen held the saber with one hand, and her left hand was in the shape of a claw in front of her chest. Smoke came out of her palm, and she slowly flew backwards. This was the first time they had fought, but Wenwen did not gain any advantage. In an instant, everyone was in an uproar. There were people who recognized the martial arts that Ouyang Tianxing was using, and they shouted it out. "Oh my God, that's the Chu family's thunder-flicking finger, and the Xing family's Yama claw of condemnation. How is that possible?" Among the other 10 experts who came with Xen Qin and the others, a white-haired old man, who was especially old, called out the name. Panda exclaimed, "How is that possible? The Xing clan and Chu clan's external techniques require their own unique internal techniques to be used. Could it be? That elder inhaled a cold breath. That's right, Ouyang Tianxing also knows the Chu clan's 6 god rules and the Xing clan's hell rules. No wonder the 2 aristocratic clans have not appeared in recent years. No wonder the pugilistic world is in such a mess, and no one can find any traces of them. The 2 aristocratic clans are probably dead. Daoist Song Song said, but even though Ouyang Tianxing has the absolute techniques of the 2 clans, his realm doesn't seem to be as good as Sect Master Wen's. Why are the 2 of them evenly matched? The elder sighed. I don't know either. Even Wen was at a loss, much less the people outside. She had used all her strength in her saber, but it was blocked with a single hand. How is it? Do you still think I don't have the qualifications to fight with you? Ouyang Tianxing's voice was filled with indescribable carefreeness. Demon Sovereign Jiao, Evil Monarch Yu, Long Ding Tian, Ghost Shadow, and the others who had just sneaked out were now standing behind Xinguang and shouting in unison. Especially the people from the Poison Clan and Dark Clan, they were exceptionally excited. For the past few months, the pugilistic world's experts, who were considered heroes, had become street rats and lived in constant fear. Once the experts from their sects were caught by Wen, they would flee in panic, but they couldn't escape and were slaughtered by her like chickens and dogs. On the other hand, more and more people from the pugilistic world joined the orthodox Guangding headquarters, which made it even more difficult for them. If it wasn't for Mr. Ying's resourcefulness and his special methods to control everyone, these people might not have lasted until now and would have betrayed them long ago. Now they could finally hold their heads up high. Mr. Ying is mighty. Mr. Ying is invincible. On the other side, Ouyang Tianxing's attack was successful. The others were either happy or worried. Only Xinguang sensed that when the 2 of them fought, an elemental power that was exactly the same as the world-shattering holy tribe came from Ouyang Tianxing's side. Although this ripple wasn't strong and was far inferior to the world-shattering holy tribe's warriors, in today's battle, coupled with Ouyang Tianxing's original inner strength martial arts, it had a miraculous effect. He actually succeeded in showing off. My cup, come quickly, Chen Guang muttered in his heart. On the other side, Wen and Ouyang Tianxing fought again after a short standoff. The 2 of them fought higher and higher, and the air was filled with energy. Both of them were actually evenly matched. These 2 people can actually walk in the air. It's fine if Sect Master Wen can do it. After all, she is a rare genius that only appears once in 1,000 years. But this Ouyang Tianxing, how is it possible? Not only is Mr. Ying the most intelligent person in the world, his martial arts cultivation is also on par with Wen family's demoness. This is our Shadow Alliance's blessing. The evil faction martial artists in Shadow Alliance were in high spirits. The people from the headquarters were even more depressed and worried. In the meantime, the headquarters martial artists led by Daoist Song Song tried to sneak in Xinguang's direction several times. However, they were all blocked by the people lying in ambush. Chen Guang looked up at the 2 people fighting in the air. He was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. He urged Azure in his heart. Hurry up, Lady Azure. Shut up. Although the 2 people in the air seemed to be evenly matched, as long as he was a hostage, Ouyang Tianxing was in an undefeatable position. Moreover, although this guy was the self-proclaimed world-shattering Holy Lord, since he had mastered the ability to transform into yellow sand, Wen couldn't kill him. In this world, this guy only had one natural enemy, and that was the person who completely suppressed him in terms of cultivation level. That person's cultivation level had regressed, and that person was me, the Earth-Paste Exploder. Chen Guang still remembered the formation called Endless Reincarnation Wheel that the 3 elders of the world-shattering holy tribe had created. If he was not wrong, since Ouyang Tianxing chose to fight here, he couldn't have just prepared a sniper machine gun to act cute. Especially this mountain top, it was filled with extremely dense elemental power. Using his consciousness, it was very similar to the Endless Reincarnation Wheel. This also meant that it was very likely that Ouyang Tianxing possessed an inexhaustible amount of power in this region. Just as he was thinking about this, The two people who were fighting in the air suddenly stopped moving. In the next instant, the two of them fell from a height of 10 meters. Ouyang Tianxing was lying on the ground, but his body blocked Wenwen, so Chen Guang couldn't see Wenwen's movements from below. However, the long blade pierced through Ouyang Tianxing's back. He was lying on the ground, but his limbs were spread out, and he didn't move at all. The previously excited Shadow Alliance evil faction warriors were all speechless. Instead it was Daoist Vasp Kalo and the rest who were ecstatic. While these people were in a daze, Xan Qin and Wu Miaowan, who had been paying attention to Qin Guang, looked at each other and made up their minds. Here's our chance. Xan Qin's thin figure suddenly disappeared into the crowd. She turned into a flash of light and went straight for Qin Guang's metal bed. Only Qin Guang suddenly had a bad feeling. He shouted, "Wen, be careful." The others didn't know, but Qin Guang knew. Ouyang Tianxing was playing a trick. There was no blood coming out from the place where the blade pierced through his back. It's too late. Ouyang Tianxing, who was pretending to be a corpse in the sky, suddenly laughed. In the next instant, Qin Guang's pupils contracted. This guy's elemental power was completely activated. Ouyang Tianxing finally used his ultimate move. The others only saw Ouyang Tianxing's right fist suddenly grow bigger and then fly above him like a cannonball. Creaking sounds came from the place where the blade pierced through. It was obvious that Wenwen wanted to retract her blade, but he had turned his body into rock and stopped her. When Wenwen realized something was wrong, Ouyang Tianxing's rock fist had already landed on her shoulder that was holding the blade. Although she had internal energy to protect her body, she was still sent flying by the terrifying force. The black blade fell out of her hand. The two landed separately. Ouyang Tianxing stood in front of Qin Guang with his hands behind his back. How was it? Did you like the taste of this punch? In the distance, Wenwen clutched her shoulder and stared at them. She didn't understand what was going on. She had almost reached the limit of a martial artist, and she had even surpassed the strongest master of the Wen family recorded in the family's ancient books. How could she lose? But Ouyang Tianxing's situation was too strange. For the first time, she realized that she might not be his opponent. Clown, get lost. Xan Qin had already rushed in front of Qin Guang. Ouyang Tianxing had his hands behind his back and didn't even look in her direction. He raised his left hand without turning his head. Qi burst out from his fingertips. It was the Chu family's fingers snapping thunder. The moment the Qi appeared, it shot towards Xan Qin's head like a bullet. While it didn't look powerful, everyone knew that with the power that Ouyang Tianxing displayed, Xan Qin, who was merely at the peak of bone strength, would die instantly. Bam! The fingers snapping thunder didn't hit Xan Qin's body. It was blocked by a hand that suddenly reached out. Although this hand was also blown into pieces, and only half of the wrist bone was left, it was still blocked in the end. Xan Qin was stunned. Wu Miaowan and Daoist Xianxia were stunned as well. Wenwen, who was trying her best to regulate her inner qi and control her injuries, was stunned as well. Long Dingon was the first to shout, "Didn't I shatter all your bones? How can you move?" The person who blocked the finger-snapping thunder was Qin Guang, who broke free from the hemp rope and forcefully used his right palm to block in front of Xan Qin's head. Ouyang Tianxing turned around and wasn't overly surprised. In his previous life, he was the elemental controller, right Qin, who single-handedly destroyed the world-shattering Saint Clan. Ouyang Tianxing turned around and wasn't overly surprised. In his previous life, he was the elemental controller, right Qin, who single-handedly destroyed the world-shattering Saint Clan. But it was useless. His broken wrist had started to bleed. The finger-snapping thunder contained the Six Gods' Law inner force that was wreaking havoc in his body. His aura was rapidly weakening. He didn't have much longer to live, and this was worse than committing suicide by cutting his wrist. Chen Guang's blood sprayed out and dripped onto Xan Qin's face. After a brief moment of absent-mindedness, she suddenly wailed, "Chen Guang!" Chieftain. Daoist Xianxia saw that the situation wasn't good and immediately formed a formation to protect Wu Miaowan. Wu Miaowan had a medical kit with her, and she could still be saved in time. Wenwen, who was already severely injured, couldn't be bothered about her injuries as she activated her inner chi again and charged forward. Don't even think about succeeding. Demon Sovereign Jiao and the others didn't wait for Ouyang Tianxing's order and took the initiative to face Daoist Song Song and the others. The other martial artists that were hiding in the mountains started to open fire, and bullets rained down on everyone. Ouyang Tianxing laughed maniacally. Forget it. I originally wanted to let you live a little longer. But since you are seeking death, I won't stop you. As for the others, all of you shall die. Ouyang Tianxing raised his hand again, and a thunderous sound rose from his abdomen. The Chu clan's 6 god laws and Xing clan's Hell Palace rules were activated at the same time. 2 waves of inner chi flew out from his palms like dragons, one towards Wang and the other towards Daoist Song Song and the others. When the rumbling stopped, Wang flew back a few steps from the impact, and Daoist Song Song and the others were in an even more tragic state. They all vomited blood as they flew back, and along the way, they were hit by the sneak attacks. The fist tyrant, Panda, had a palm-sized wound on his chest. Wu Miaowan, who was protecting him from behind, coughed up blood from the impact of the blow. The others were all sprawled all over the ground. Even the most experienced and knowledgeable old man spat out blood and fell to the ground dead. On the other hand, Xen Qin was already standing beside Qin Guang. She pulled down her sleeves and tried to bind Qin Guang's wrist to stop the bleeding, and tears flowed uncontrollably from her eyes. But Qin Guang did not move. He raised his left hand expressionlessly and caught the heavenly holy grail that was flying towards him from behind. With a flick of his left index finger, he opened the lid of the grail. With the holy grail in hand, the world is mine. Ha! What's a little bit of blood? At a time like this, let me drink some water to calm my nerves. He raised the grail with his left hand, and drank as if he was toasting the moon. But what entered his mouth was not water, but mud. Damn it! Lord Lu Li, what the hell are you doing? Chen Guang felt extremely awkward. His image was completely ruined. You still have the cheek to say that? Someone snatched the grail and threw it into the trash. When I rushed out of the trash with the grail, I thought that the immortal heaven's world of cups should at least have some space, and not an empty grail. That's why I was considerate enough to fill it with mud for you. Who asked you to not forget to act cool at a time like this? Lu Li's ridicule was tit for tat. Oh, all right, thank you for your consideration. On the other side, Ouyang Tianxing laughed out loud. Right, Qin, are you crazy? An Earth Great Magician can recover his strength by eating soil? Chen Guang smiled. In Ouyang Tianxing's eyes, his expression was rather strange. That's right. When people are down and out, they should eat more soil. That way, they can really make a comeback. Wait a second, I'll teach you a lesson. Come to me. Ascend to the heavens. Chapter 901. Ha! Chen Guang laughed maniacally. He was about to enter the world in the cup. Although he did not know what the world in the cup was like this time, and did not know how long he would stay in there. But the things in the outside world would definitely not pass by much, and others would not be able to sense any changes. So, I have to create an illusion that my aura suddenly increased while I laughed maniacally, and my strength increased rapidly. That's right, although I was really a pig that could not eat a tiger, I cannot be afraid. I have to give people the illusion that I was hiding my strength. I have to let them understand that they have offended a terrifying person. I have to let them tremble in fear of my black-bellied nature. I have to let them know that I was actually using the mentality of a cat toying with a mouse to look at everything. Although the truth was not like that, on the surface, I definitely could not lose in terms of aura. His laughter became more and more smug, more and more arrogant, more and more domineering, and more confident. Although his current actions were a little intentional, it did not matter. He was the best actor in history, a living fossil among the veteran actors. Not only did he look like he acted in front of the camera, he could also achieve whatever effect he wanted normally. He would definitely get into character instantly, without a script, resolutely put an end to awkwardness, and give the most perfect performance to the audience. At this moment, everyone present could feel his astonishing and inexplicable confidence. Confusion, 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 sympathy, and other extremely complicated emotions were born in everyone's hearts, and they quickly evolved in this order. Slowly, everyone felt that something was wrong. What was wrong with this bro? Did he lose so much blood that he went crazy? Did he think he was going to die, so he went crazy? Honestly, brother, your exploded hand is still bleeding, and you are so happy, aren't you going to die? Tragic, too tragic, this is the hysteria before death. Even Ouyang Tianxing, the instigator of all this, felt a sense of desolation. Sigh, Chen Guang was able to come this far, although he was a little lucky, luck was also a part of his strength. After all, he had once forced me, Ouyang Tianxing, into a corner. He was also once a hero who commanded an area of the Dolua world. Falling to this day is really a hero past his prime. It makes people sigh with emotion. Chen Guang gripped the Holy Grail so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He had been laughing for a full 10 seconds, but there was still no movement. He did not know why, but he was a little panicked. Lady Crystal, pull me in. This is so awkward. We will wait until you are done laughing. Don't. Lord Lioli, don't mess with me. You scolded me just now. Who is so daring? He even dares to scold a dignified divine emperor. Lord Luli, tell me, I'll go beat him to death. What do you think? Who are you talking about just now? What the hell are you talking about? I was wrong, I was really wrong. My dearest and greatest Lady Crystal, please give me another chance. Unknowingly, he had been laughing for a full 20 seconds. He was almost out of breath. But at this time, he couldn't breathe. As the saying goes, one spurts of energy, the second spurts of energy, the third spurts of energy, and the second spurts of energy. Acting cool had to be done in one breath. Once he breathed, his momentum would be weakened, and he would be embarrassed. All right, seeing that your apology is commendable, this empress will forgive you as always. Come in. The scene in front of him flowed like water. The next moment, Chen Guang, who was laughing so hard that he was out of breath, suddenly appeared in Cloud City. Cough, cough, cough. I say, why do you have to do this? Lioli's voice came from about a meter or two in front of Chen Guang. But when he looked up, he felt that it was empty. Where is he? Stop asking or I will beat you. Chen Guang, why? Dear Mingguo said from a distance outside the wall, Chen Guang, don't take it for granted. In order to help you build the middle realm of the Green Sky Cup, Sister Lioli consumed a lot of divine power. Not to mention the lustrous feather raiment, she can't even maintain her body. That's right. Now my body has almost become transparent. Do you know how good I am to you? Lioli snorted. Chen Guang narrowed his eyes and looked ahead. As expected, it was not completely empty in front of him, but he could vaguely see extremely blurry traces like flowing water, which made the light coming from a distance seem to be refracted through the flowing water. Terrible, this time it was really terrible. He had waited for so long until she couldn't even gather the clouds to cover her embarrassment, but in the end, she was completely transparent. This feeling was as painful as waiting for a female star to be naked, but in the end, she was really naked. It was also as sad as going to an infantry film, but in the end, she was the Calabash brothers. Lioli was shocked. It's hopeless. This guy's wretchedness was deeply engraved in his bones. Even if his hand outside had exploded and blood was spurting out like a fountain, after coming in, the thoughts in his mind were still crooked. Lioli, who had turned transparent, kicked Chen Guang's chin from the bottom up. As the saying goes, dying under a peony flower is still romantic even as a ghost. Just like that, old Master Guang was kicked into the air with infinite regret. The space-time tunnel in the air disappeared in a flash, swallowing Chen Guang who was flying in the air. Falling into the tunnel, Chen Guang also stopped teasing Su Tao and raised his guard. With his first experience in the Hidden Sea, Chen Guang knew that the immortal heaven was definitely not inferior to the Hidden Sea at the same level. It was very likely that he would be chased the moment he entered, just like the previous time. So he had to be fully focused. No matter who it was, no matter what was waiting for me, The old man was no longer an ignorant person. Although he wasn't a top-notch expert, the old man was now a bone force martial artist and had a perfect body. He also had the super strong regenerative ability of the earth paste exploder. If he was really unhappy, he would condense a mud ball on his finger and burst his forehead. Ouyang Tianxing's move just now seemed to be called something like finger flick? It's a bit similar to the divine flicking finger written in Wuxia novels. This move is very suitable for me. Together with this old man's ultimate dart technique, I'll let you have a taste of the Chen clan's divine flicking finger with a snap of my right finger. My hand. Chen Guang lowered his head to look at his wrist that only had a fire stick left. His right forearm was completely devoid of a palm. He was completely dumbfounded. At this moment, the wound on his broken forearm had completely healed. It looked like a standard disabled person. If he were to lie down on the street, he could earn 10,000 a month just from selling bowls. What happened to the earth paste exploder's invincible healing? Why did it heal me like this? I can't really be a Venus with a broken arm for the rest of my life, right? Azure's voice sounded. Who told you to come in with a broken arm? The Holy Grail reconstructed your spiritual body according to your condition. It's already good enough that you didn't continue to bleed. All right, stop howling. When you come out from this world in the cup, the Holy Grail will reconstruct your entire physical body in order to allow your external body to quickly reach its training target. This arm will grow back. This sounds like I'm repairing relics in the Forbidden City. Then what do you want? Forget it, it's fine. Wait, does this mean that my arm will be broken the entire time I'm in the world in the cup? Aha! Forget it. Thinking about it, Yang Guo only became stronger after losing his arm. One arm will allow me to be more focused. With my hand speed of being single for 20 years, my left arm will be ridiculously strong. Yang Guo's arm was broken at the base. Do you need me to thoughtfully stab him? Forget it. Right, the last time I was in the Sea of Time, I had to live in there for half a year. This time, I'll give you 4 words. Hello, Duofu. Goodbye, Duofu. Before Chen Guang could finish his sentence, he reached the end of the space-time tunnel. When he opened his eyes, he saw a blue sky and blue clouds. It was a beautiful sight. The bright sun was slowly floating in the sky. At this moment, he was lying down. That was great. It wasn't like the last time where he had to kneel and wait to be beheaded. He was lying down. How blissful. He stretched and then got up to announce to the world that the old man was here. At the same time, the heavenly Holy Grail's electronic notifications sounded in his ears. Mission location, True Martial Land. Mission objective, become the true martial sage before dying 100 times. Chen Guang nodded silently. Although he didn't know what kind of person the true martial sage was, nor did he know how to become a martial sage, it didn't matter. He could slowly figure it out later. It was still the familiar 100 revival chances. Although it was a little stingy, with his talent and wit, it shouldn't be a problem. Just as he was thinking about this, a black light suddenly flashed across the sky before him. The next moment he saw his own headless corpse again. Strange, why did I say again? That's right, his head flew off again. *CK. The 8th heaven of the immortal god heaven was toxic. Did it have to be like this? Why was his posture and situation so awkward every time he appeared? The last time he was pressed to the ground and beheaded. This time, it was even worse. He was actually lying flat on a dog's head guillotine. The flying head was still looking around in midair. Chen Guang finally saw the situation clearly. This was a standard scene from a television drama. It was a busy street in an ancient city. Below it, there were countless people dressed in coarse hemp clothes acting as extras. Among them, there were several people with different expressions and dressed in standard swordsman's robes. The strong chopstick wielder, whose face was covered in blood, was looking back at the high platform. He bowed and reported something to the smug and relieved officials. Reporting to my lord. The notorious rapist Chen Guang is dead. The remaining evildoers of the Valley of the Vile have all been killed. Chen Guang was so angry that he laughed. Ha! *CK. Isn't the setting of my entrance a little too crazy? I'm such an upright person. Why was it a hapless rapist? And what the hell are the remnants of the Valley of the Vile? What he meant was that he was in a worse situation than the last time. Not only was he alone, but he was also notorious. From the looks of it, he was a wanted criminal by the authorities of the Zhenwu land. What was the old man to do? At least give me some memory of raping. At least let me know which family's daughter I raped, whether she was pretty or not, and whether she was worth it. I should at least have some happy memories, right? What a loss. Also, this deceiving official must be an unscrupulous sadist. When you use a dog's head guillotine to behead someone, do you make the criminal face up? Don't they always show people lying on the ground? Then I will definitely be more vigilant. I won't lose my life. I can't accept this. I was plotted against. Chapter 902. The Heavenly Holy Grail's notification came. Congratulations, Redeemer, on your first death. Please prepare for resurrection. Chen Guang said, Congratulations, my ass. Are you a monkey sent by a clown? Why don't you celebrate with me? The Heavenly Holy Grail naturally ignored his ridicule. The familiar time reversal was like pressing the rewind button when playing a video. The scene changed, and Chen Guang resurrected for the first time. He lay under the dog-headed guillotine again. Chen Guang turned his head and saw the strong executioner with one hand on the huge blade of the dog-headed guillotine. This guy made his move. Chen Guang began to struggle, shouting, "Spare my life." According to the plots of wuxia dramas, the mantra, "Spare my life," was equivalent to a death exemption card. But it was useless. The executioner didn't even blink. With a flip of his palm, the big guillotine flipped over and slashed at Chen Guang's neck. Before Chen Guang could break free from the shackles on his neck, the guillotine came down. The dramas in the TV series were all lies. Chen Guang cursed in his heart as he raised his left hand to grab the guillotine. His right hand, which had turned into a fire stick, stabbed at the wooden shackles on his neck. The 5 fingers of his left hand suddenly exerted force with the vital energy of the Danqing scroll, and tightly gripped the extremely heavy guillotine. The fire stick was quite useful in his right hand, and it stabbed at the wooden shackles. With a crisp sound, the wooden shackles snapped. His left hand pushed upwards with force, and the guillotine bounced off. Chen Guang then did a carp flip and stood up straight on the execution platform. For a moment, the execution platform was in chaos. The pot-bellied official wearing a black veil shrank his neck and hid behind the crowd as he shouted, "All of you, attack! Chop this vicious villain to death!" The executioner who had failed to carry out the execution pulled out a large, thick-backed machete and slashed at Chen Guang's head. The surrounding soldiers holding spears, sticks, knives, and swords all rushed forward while shouting. Instead of panicking, the people in the bustling city below were indescribably excited. They clenched their fists, blushed, and opened their mouths. Their faces were filled with joy and excitement. They were the standard bystanders. As a newcomer, Chen Guang didn't know how strong the people of the land of true martial arts were. Therefore, he didn't dare to be careless. He turned around, raised his hand, and unleashed his full strength. He grabbed the knife with his left hand and used his right hand as a stick to stab the executioner's stomach with all his strength. With a loud bang, the man let out a blood-curdling scream as he was sent flying several hundred feet away. Then he fell straight into the crowd of onlookers below. Chen Guang was momentarily stunned as he looked down at his right hand. Were the people in this world particularly weak, or did he become stronger after coming here? When he grabbed the guillotine just now, he felt that the increase in strength when he activated his inner force was higher than in the real world, but the time was too short to be sure. Now that he had punched someone else, even if he had used all his strength, it was still a bit exaggerated to send such a strong man flying more than 100 feet away. Circulating the same inner strength, the power released was several times stronger than in the real world. Although he didn't know the principle behind it, he was sure that there was something in the land of Zhenwu that could strengthen a martial artist's practice and circulation of inner strength. Perhaps it was air? Forget it, don't worry about the details. Even though the man had sent him flying so far away, he didn't explode in the air like a piece of tofu. It was clear that the physiques of the natives of the true martial land weren't easy to deal with. He had become stronger. These aborigines of the true martial arts continent, even if they were only paid executioners, should be much stronger than ordinary earthlings. The situation was too unclear. Of the 36 stratagems, retreat was the best. Chen Guang brandished the thick-backed machete with his left hand, spinning it above his head like a flower. He dashed around the execution platform and broke free from several people. Finally, he rushed to the side of the execution platform and shouted, "Get out of my way!" Then he jumped down, brandishing his machete. The onlookers seemed to be very experienced. They all dodged to the side in unison. After landing heavily on the ground, Chen Guang broke through the crowd and continued to rush forward. "How dare you, a rapist? You're about to die, yet you still dare to rob the execution ground?" Among the crowd, a man who looked like a swordsman drew his sword with a clang and charged forward, shouting, "Rob your face. The old man is trying to save himself. I'll pluck your face." Seeing that he was dressed in a swordsman's outfit and wore a crown, he looked like a young Jianghu swordsman. Chen Guang thought that he might be a master since he used all his strength to swing his machete. When the sword and the machete collided, the swordsman's hand went numb. He lost all his strength in an instant. His fingers loosened, and the long sword flew out, piercing into the door beam of a brothel 10 feet away. The swordsman held his hand and retreated a few steps. Blood dripped from his palm, and his face was pale. "How is this possible? When I caught you yesterday, you were just a muggle. How can you have inner strength now?" Chen Guang was even dumber than him. Muggle? What kind of joke was this? Why did it sound a little familiar? Besides, wasn't this Jinwu University? It would be strange if he didn't have inner strength. If you don't have it, don't do it. "Whoever dares to stop me again, I will not show mercy. Those who stand in my way will die." Chen Guang was very puzzled, but he shouted again and again. The thick machete circled around his body, knocking away countless weapons of the soldiers behind him. He didn't know any machete skills, so he waved the machete with brute force. But when he exerted all his strength, it was like when he punched out before. The mist in front of the machete was dense, and he actually slashed out knife chi. After all, he didn't control his strength well. Several of the most arrogant soldiers who rushed to the front to take his life were cut in the waist by the knife chi. With blood spurting from their stomachs, they took a few steps back and fell to the ground dead. Inner strength. Oh my God! This rapist has mastered inner strength. He is no longer a muggle. Another martial disciple has been born, and he is also a rapist. It's really a great misfortune for our Thunder Mad Magic City. Whether it was the state officials who were hiding in the distance, the soldiers who were continuing to rush forward but were shocked and did not dare to go further, or the onlookers who were flying back to the distance, they were all in an uproar. Chen Guang was more confused than them. "You are the aborigines of Jinwu land. Do you have to be so surprised to see inner strength? You guys are making me very disheartened, okay?" He also realized that it was strange. From the time he broke free from the execution platform to the present, he had fought against no less than 20 people, but none of them had inner strength. Damn, could it be that the cup world that Lu Li prepared for me has become a shrunken and incomplete version? Has the core function been reduced? People in this world don't have inner strength? Then why should I practice it? With such thoughts in mind, Chen Guang rushed to the gate of Thunder Mad Magic City, which was named particularly domineering, and left. Chen Guang, the last survivor of the Vile Valley, who was supposed to be executed in the downtown area, suddenly possessed internal energy. News of this spread throughout the city at a speed faster than Chen Guang's escape. He rushed all the way, but no one dared to stop him. After leaving the city, Chen Guang randomly chose a direction and ran away until he went deep into the jungle where there was no one. He stopped to take a breath and communicate with Lu Li in his heart. "Miss Lu Li, give me an answer. I have something important to ask." "What do you want to ask?" "When you settle down, the truth of this Jinwu land will appear in front of you." "Why? Don't you believe in my ability? Are you afraid that I have cheated you? Chen Guang thought, you have cheated me many times. However, since she was unwilling to say, Chen Guang did not dare to ask more. This lord was quite narrow-minded and could not be offended. Absolutely not. Miss Lu Li, you have worked hard. I am very satisfied with the Zhenwu land. Okay, if there is nothing else, I will take a nap and rest first. I am too tired. Wait a minute, why was I a rapist at the beginning? I will only ask this question. Chen Guang was very unhappy about this. I am such a decent person, but I did not do anything and was made into a rapist at the beginning. It was simply heartless. You can't blame yourself. Why? Before the so-called world in the cup is truly born, there is a general outline. For example, you will know the level of the world in the cup and what kind of ability you will be training. However, the immortal God Heavenly Cup's world of true martial, which has a complete worldview, is actually formed the moment you enter the world in the cup based on your state at that time. Before you entered the world in the cup, you had evil thoughts in your heart and your thoughts were impure. It was natural for you to be a rapist at the beginning. Who told you not to be awe-inspiring at that time? Otherwise, you would have been a disciple of a famous sect, right? Now you are a survivor of the Valley of the Vial. Just thinking about it makes me feel ashamed for you. Okay, he dug his own grave, so he could not blame Lu Li. Looking left and right, there was no one else. Chen Guang silently covered his face. Fortunately, no one else knew about this. This was a stain on his life. After wandering alone in the forest for a long time, he felt a little hungry. He also felt that this was not the way to go, so he simply sneaked in the direction of the Thunderclap Wild Demon City. He was quite distressed. If there was no one else with inner strength besides him, how could he become a martial sage? Also, what kind of level could one be called a martial sage? Just like what he did before when he displayed it in front of so many people, could it be considered as bravery? With the old man's physical body and inner strength that others did not have, in the era of cold weapons, would he not be a proper invincible martial sage? While he was thinking about it in a daze, the heavenly Holy Grail's late reminder finally came. This time, however, it was not an electronic voice, but a force-feeding technique. The Holy Grail forcefully stuffed the entire worldview of the middle world into his brain, just like a computer downloading data. After more than an hour, Chen Guang stood up unsteadily. When he looked up at the sky, his heart was filled with a different feeling. The land of true martial was not simple. Perhaps it was because he was laughing wildly before entering the world of the cup. He did not hold the cup properly, causing the soil in the cup to tilt. This was reflected in the world of the true martial land, which led to such a result. That was, the whole world was not a flat piece of land, but a tilted upward curve, and the tilt became more and more severe. Looking into the distance, one side of the sky was blue and white clouds, no different from the real world, but the other side of the sky was darker. Before, Chen Guang thought that it was dark clouds, but now he knew he was wrong. It was clearly because there was a huge upward slope far away from his field of vision. To be precise, it could not be called a slope, because it was the whole world that was tilted, the whole land of true martial. This world had no horizon. Chapter 903. At this time, he was at the bottom of the Zhenwu University's inclined plane. In addition, the power he obtained from using his inner strength in this world was indeed stronger than in the real world. The reason for this phenomenon was that the Zhenwu University was filled with a strange power. The natives of the Zhenwu University called it yin yang qi. In Chen Guang's philosophy, it could also be called spiritual energy. It could also be called the essence of heaven and earth when a martial artist cultivated inner strength. In short, it could be called anything. This yin-yang qi was invisible and colorless, but it really existed. Not only did it exist in the Zhenwu University, but it also existed in the real world. For example, martial artists in the real world could practice their inner strength more efficiently in a beautiful place than in a big city made of steel and concrete. Another example was the ice jade bed in the Wen family's secret territory. When meditating there, the inner strength would circulate more efficiently. The sects in the real world explained that these places were filled with outstanding people. It helped martial artists understand the truth of heaven and earth and understand the martial way. But in fact, it was just that the yin-yang qi in these places was more concentrated. It was just that no one could really see the essence of yin-yang in this world. No one could quantify it and give it a specific name. When martial artists meditated, the qi came from the heart and body. They refined the essence into qi, and the qi strengthened the tendons. Then they refined the qi into the spirit, and the spirit strengthened the bones. Then they refined the spirit into the void, and the skin transformed. Finally, they refined the void into the way. This was reflected in the Wen family martial artists entering the Wenzhong realm, and the plain Yi sect martial artists entering the plain mind realm. This yin-yang qi was the external qi that martial artists absorbed to strengthen themselves. It didn't seem to exist, but in fact, it complemented the martial artist's inner strength and was very beneficial. Yin-yang qi was not only beneficial to martial artists, but also to ordinary people. For example, ordinary people in the real world felt depressed in big cities. Their whole body was in a subhealthy state. If they went to a beautiful place for a month or two for a vacation, they would feel refreshed and full of energy. This wasn't just because they felt relieved from the burden of work, but because the air they breathed was different. As the saying went, if you were tired, you should take a breath of fresh air. You would feel much more relaxed and comfortable. In fact, this was the invisible wisdom of the ancients, which secretly combined the benefits of yin and yang qi. In short, the yin and yang qi in the land of true martial was much denser than in the real world. The Thunder Wild Demon City, where Qinguang was located, had 8 times denser yin and yang qi than in the real world. That was why the strong executioner, who didn't practice inner strength, wasn't torn apart by Qinguang's punch. It was precisely because he lived in the land of Zhenwu, where the yin and yang qi was extremely dense. His body had been nourished for many years, and he was far stronger than the average person on Earth. However, the Thunderclap Wild Demon City was located at the lowest level of the sloping true martial great land. The density of the yin-yang qi would only increase if one followed the endless slope upwards. The entire true martial land was divided into 9 layers. The higher one went, the denser the yin-yang qi became. The higher one went, the purer and denser the yin-yang qi would be, and the stronger the yin-yang qi would be. Apart from that, perhaps the Transcendence Holy Grail wanted to facilitate Qinguang's training. It had forcefully extracted a crappy martial arts ranking system from the web novels he had read in the past. Qinguang said, "I really don't want to tell you about this unlucky ranking system. It's too shameful." Yes, that's right. From the strongest to the weakest, they were martial emperor, martial king, martial tyrant, martial revered, martial monarch, and then heroic martial artist and martial disciple. There were a total of 10 ranks for martial artists with inner strength. Including the legendary martial sage, which no one had ever reached, there were a total of 11 ranks for martial artists with inner strength. Finally, there were those who didn't have any inner strength at all. They were regarded as trash who couldn't sense qi. In some places, they were called noobs or incompetent. In some places, such as the area around the Thunderclap Wild Demon City, they were called muggles. Qinguang said, "Incompetent. F***ck your dialect. I definitely won't admit that the Heavenly Holy Grail stole these words from the Harry Potter novels that I once read. The things that scholars do can't be called stealing, it's called borrowing." Yes, that's right. In fact, Qinguang felt that the term muggles was quite appropriate. Living in the true martial land with such dense yin-yang qi, yet unable to sense qi, how was he different from a salted fish? Since he was already a salted fish, wouldn't the term muggles be more appropriate? Qinguang only wanted to thank the Heavenly Holy Grail for its thoughtfulness. This clear division of the 12 major ranks was very easy for him to understand. Although he still didn't know what a martial sage was, he just needed to follow this ladder and climb up step by step. Right now, he was at the beginner level of muscle jing, which was equivalent to a martial disciple in the true martial land. Chen Guang began to count with his fingers. By this analogy, when he reached the middle stage of muscle jing, he would be a standard martial artist. In terms of realms, martial emperors were probably at the level of Wenwen's great scholar realm. After that, there were emperor kings and tyrant lords. Sigh, I can't stand it anymore. Just thinking about the ratings in my mind, which were so bad that I almost couldn't stand it anymore, made me feel so awkward that my cancer was about to break out. In short, after cutting out the non-existent martial sages, the martial emperors, and the useless muggles, the remaining 9 ranks from martial emperor to martial disciple corresponded to the 3 stages of muscle jing, bone jing, and skin jing: peak, middle, and beginner. However, although the realms were the same, the actual combat strength displayed was completely different. Currently, the strength displayed by Chen Guang, who was at the lowest level, was already several times stronger than when he was on Earth. At the higher levels, where the density of yin-yang qi was higher, the inner strength contained within his body and the dense yin-yang qi nourished his body. This would increase the combat strength of a martial artist by almost equal proportions. For example, the most powerful realm of the true martial land, martial emperors, could actually cause as much destruction as the overlord-level experts in the Sea of Transient. In total, there were 9 levels of the true martial land. The highest level was divided up by the martial emperor's heavenly kingdom. Below them, there were martial emperors and other experts of various levels who had their own territories. At the lowest level of the world that Chen Guang was currently in, there were countless countries ruled by martial artists. Every country was made up of at most dozens, at least a few, and there might even be only a single city. Chen Guang's novice village, Thunder Wild Magic City, belonged to a country controlled by a martial disciple. The guy who looked like a state official on the execution platform was probably the advisor of this martial disciple. In addition, muggles without inner strength could only survive in the lowest 3 levels. It wasn't because the strong people in the upper levels rejected these weak people. It was purely because the higher they went, the denser the yin and yang qi became. After entering the 4th level, the density of the yin and yang qi exceeded the muggles' tolerance. If they tried to force their way in, they would explode and die. The true martial land was divided into 9 levels. The average density of the yin and yang qi in the lowest 3 levels was 10 times that of Earth. For example, in Thunder Wild Magic City, it was 8 times that of Earth. The next level was 10 times that of Earth, and the next level was 12 times that of Earth. However, from the 3rd level to the 4th level, the density of the yin and yang qi rose sharply. The average density of the yin and yang qi in the middle 3 levels was 100 times that of Earth. The average density of the yin and yang qi in the top 3 levels was 1,000 times that of Earth. Chen Guang didn't want to imagine how strong the people on that level would be. In the upper layer of the martial heavenly country, even a poor butcher who slaughtered pigs would be an expert in the martial king realm at the very least. Even in the lower layer, he would be considered a top-notch expert. Just like how Chen Guang could move unhindered in the Thunderclap Wild Demonic City, he was like a crane in a flock of chickens, pretending to be an expert among dwarves. In addition, the most precious resource in the true martial land was water, rivers, and lakes. Because the water in each river flowed down from the upper levels, the water in the rivers contained even denser yin and yang qi. In the sealed true martial land, the water in the lower levels evaporated into steam and flowed upwards. The water in the upper levels condensed into dark clouds and rain, which converged into rivers and flowed downwards. In the process of condensing steam into water, the yin and yang qi would naturally be wrapped in it. Of course, even in the lower levels, there would occasionally be rain like on Earth. Unfortunately, this was very rare. Because the water in the rivers in the lower levels had been exploited by the upper levels and there was very little rain, the lower levels were even more arid. Unfortunately, the population base was the largest, so the people here lived in poverty and lacked yin and yang qi as a cultivation resource. The higher one went, the heavier the rain became, almost forming a waterfall. The water pressure and the yin and yang chi's spiritual pressure became heavier, so it was extremely difficult to go against the flow. It was precisely because of this extremely strange structure of the world that almost everyone born in this world wanted to continuously become stronger, go to a higher level of the country, obtain a longer lifespan, pursue greater power, and comprehend more profound martial arts realms. The desire to become stronger was engraved in the genes of the true martial land's natives. It was even more deep-rooted and intense than the instinct to carry on the family line. Even those martial emperors who had already reached the peak would not stop their footsteps and continue moving forward. This was because above the martial emperors, there was a realm that only existed in legends. Everyone knew it existed, but no one had ever reached the martial sage realm. As for how to become a martial sage, there was no quantitative standard. However, there was a place that everyone aimed to reach. It was the highest peak that stood at the top of the entire world. When people looked at it from afar, they felt that they were infinitely small and insignificant. According to legend, only a true martial sage could stand at the top of the highest peak and look down at the whole world. Only when one could see the whole world at a glance could they see through the most essential mysteries of the true martial land. Only then could they be freed from this endless cage. Unfortunately, even martial emperors could not reach the highest peak. They could not withstand the extreme yin and yang qi and pressure. If they tried to climb to the highest peak by force, they would only end up exploding and dying. For tens of thousands of years, countless skeletons had fallen at the foot of the highest peak. However, the natives of the true martial land continued to climb towards the highest peak like moths to a flame. No one knew the reason for the existence of the 100,000-foot staircase known as the Stairway of Despair, or who had constructed it. However, since it had stood there since ancient times, it was proof of the existence of a martial saint. Only by becoming a martial sage could one transcend the shackles of this world. Yes, the true martial land was similar to the transient sea. However, it was even more cruel. Everyone in this world knew that the world they lived in was a huge cage. They were like goo in a cage. They lived in this cage where the strong preyed on the weak. Only by becoming the emperor of goo, the martial sage, could one transcend. In this completely sealed plane, people were like the people in the transient sea. They could be resurrected. Moreover, everyone knew that they could be resurrected. Therefore, if it was not for the fact that they could not be defeated, almost everyone here was not afraid of death. They fought and studied with all their might just to obtain stronger martial arts and enter the upper countries. Of course, death was not without its disadvantages. Once a person died, they would be reincarnated into the lower countries. For example, a person who died in a martial emperor country would be resurrected in a martial emperor country. When they were born, they would only have the inner strength of a martial lord. Of course, there were some unlucky martial emperors who died in avalanches. They died several times and fell to the lowest countries. This was an extremely cruel resurrection pyramid structure. In addition, the total area of the true martial land was basically the same as the transient sea. However, because it was mostly land, the population of the true martial land was many times that of the transient sea. About half of the population were Muggles, while the other half were level 10 martial artists with inner strength. Without a doubt, the higher the rank, the smaller the population. Under normal circumstances, the average lifespan of the people in the true martial land was 100 years old. It was slightly longer than the people in the real world. In fact, the people in the true martial land had a spirit of heaven and earth. They cultivated their inner strength and nourished themselves with yin and yang energy. Ordinary old Muggles could live up to 200 years old. Martial artists with inner strength had a longer lifespan. Martial emperors could even live up to 1,000 years old. However, the people in this world placed too much emphasis on chivalry. There were heroes and there were also fake heroes. They would draw their swords and kill each other if they had a disagreement. If they could fight, they would not complain. This was because everyone firmly believed that they would be a good man again after 20 years. A large number of Muggles and even Muggles did the same. The direct result was that the average lifespan was forcefully lowered to 100 years old. Chen Guang shook his head and heaved a sigh of relief. He finally understood the huge worldview of this unfortunate world. Without a doubt, although the true martial land was the same size as the transient sea, there was more land. This world's worldview was more complete, but it was also more cruel. This huge population lived on a vast and boundless slope, achieving an extremely delicate balance. Then there was another problem. How could he become a martial sage? In the end, he still had no reference. At this moment, the heavenly Holy Grail gave him an answer. Master all the martial arts in the true martial land and you will become a true martial sage. I really have to thank your family. This is so simple. I would rather not have known. Chapter 904. He finally knew the requirements to become a martial saint, but Chen Guang did not feel happy at all. This was truly a grievous news that made one despair. Out of the total population of over 100 billion people, almost half of them had inner strength. Who knew how many martial arts there were? The spirit of the Holy Grail's electronic voice was precise in its choice of words. Since it had said all, it must have meant exactly what it said. Well, it was all 50 billion inner strength martial artists. Forget it, don't think about it anymore. I'll really find a rope to strangle myself if I keep thinking about it. Even if I could live to the age of the longest-lived martial monarchs in this world, would it be impossible for me to learn all of them? This was a goal that could never be achieved from the very beginning, okay? Lord Azure, don't you think the Holy Grail's request is too insane? Unfortunately, Azure went to sleep. No matter how much he wailed in his heart, there was no response. However, perhaps the Holy Grail understood his difficulties and gave him some additional information at this time, which made him feel slightly more at ease. In the fictional true martial land, which did not exist, but had existed for tens of thousands of years, a total of over 900,000 martial monarchs had been born. Of these 900,000 martial monarchs, some were inherited by sex, and some were self-enlightened. In total, there were over 400,000 martial arts sections. In the long and seemingly frozen history of the true martial land, although the population was extremely large, there were always all kinds of outstanding people who appeared out of nowhere and created their own martial arts. However, only the ultimate martial arts that could help one become a martial monarch were the true ultimate martial arts. Only those that could stand the test of time and leave a deep mark in the long river of history. As for the others, even the most outstanding of geniuses, if they died prematurely, they would not be able to stand closer to the peak. Their horizons would be limited, and the self-created martial arts would only be a shadow in a cup or a moon in the water. They would not be able to stand the test of time and would show various flaws after being examined. Therefore, even though the population of this world was unreasonably large and its history was unreasonably long, the true types of martial arts sects were not as terrifying as Chen Guang had imagined. According to the different attributes of inner strength techniques, they could be divided into hundreds of major sections. In a more practical sense, just like the Wen clan's painting scroll used literature to enter the Tao, the plain-clothes sect's pure heart technique was a Daoist method of cultivating the mind and temperament, and the fist tyrant Panda's fist sect used firm and overbearing fist techniques to stimulate the heroic spirit in one's heart to enter the Tao. Under each of the different major sects, hundreds and thousands of different variants could be branched out. In summary, there were more than 400,000 complete sections. Going further down, these more than 400,000 perfect sects would evolve into even more minuscule inner strength cultivation methods. But to that extent, basically all roads led to Rome, and no matter how many changes there were, they would not deviate from the original path. Because of this, Chen Guang only needed to learn more than 400,000 complete sects in order to master all the martial arts in the true martial land. Only by mastering all the martial arts in this world would one be qualified to obtain the title of true martial saint, which was the same name as this world. Of course, in the beginning, he might have to spend a lot of effort to specialize in one or several variations of the sects, But when his own realm reached a certain level, he could use the strengths of hundreds of sects for his own use. He would be able to understand the leopard by looking at the spot, and then he would be able to use an unorthodox method as a foundation, and then he would be able to deduce a perfect sect on his own. At that time, it might be much easier. For example, if he learned a knife technique that specialized in the butcher's knife technique, he would be able to deduce the complete soft knife technique. Chen Guang smacked his lips. It seemed that he only needed to learn 1,000,000 martial arts at most, and at least 400,000 would be enough. Not bad. Not bad, my ass. Don't talk to me, I want to be left alone, and please don't ask who I am. His heart was so stifled that he couldn't breathe. Forget it. Rather than feeling that the road was difficult, it was better to set off immediately. Since he had already come, there was no other choice. He had to go even if he had to. As Chen Guang raised his leg and ran towards the thunderclap wild demon city, he began to ponder in his heart. The people he had met before were all muggles. They had no inner strength at all, and were not worth mentioning. However, according to the setting of the world provided by the Holy Grail, the martial arts in this world had already matured to the point that it made one's hair stand on end. It was too easy for people in this world to obtain secret martial arts manuals. Perhaps it would be a little difficult to obtain the 400,000 complete sects that could be cultivated to the martial monarch realm, but if one went further down, the branches and variations that could be cultivated to the martial monarch realm, martial king realm, or even martial overlord realm, if one were to calculate the exponential growth rate, the number would really be too much to look at. Because there were too many choices, it was very possible that any random person with inner strength would be able to execute a high-end technique that had been tested by history for a long time. For example, a martial disciple who could become a city lord in the first layer of the country could only become a captain of the soldiers in the second layer ruled by the chivalrous. In the third layer ruled by the chivalrous, perhaps they could only set up a fruit stall on the street, and even cut pineapples with the amazingly profound and powerful blood azura saber technique. As for the fourth layer ruled by the martial monarch, sorry, martial disciples could not go there. Once they did, they would explode on the spot. Therefore, he could not underestimate the enemy. As for what he should do, how he should operate to climb up layer by layer, and finally step on the heads of all the martial monarchs, master all the martial arts, and become a martial saint. Chen Guang had a complete set of plans in mind. He would first focus on cultivating the painting scroll. Judging by Wenwen's literary grandmaster realm, the painting scroll was undoubtedly a high-end technique that could be cultivated to the martial monarch realm. When he became stronger, for example, after he became a martial artist, he would go back and bully martial disciples. Young man, I see that you have a lot of potential. Hand over the martial arts, and I will bring you along to show off and fly. What? You don't agree? Then let's go to the small forest next door and talk about life. When you feel my strong charisma, not to mention your martial arts, you will even want to introduce your wife to me. Yes, that's right, I want to snatch. Perhaps some people would say that he wanted to challenge someone of a higher level. Master Guang thought, what did you say? The wind is too strong, I can't hear you clearly. Although his physical body still held an advantage, and he also had an extremely strong regenerative ability, which gave him the foundation to challenge those of a higher realm, but who would seek abuse for no reason. Wouldn't it be better to comfortably bully those who were weaker than him? Must he go against his own life? I am not stupid. If he did not bully the weak, did not rely on robbing to obtain the secret manual, and used love to reform the world, and waited for others to come to him, who knows how long it would take to cultivate? Who knows if he used up all his 100 chances of revival by dying of old age every time, he might not be able to succeed. Speaking of which, he did have a piece of good news. That was, every time he accidentally died and revived, the martial arts and realm he grasped would not drop. Chen Guang had a wicked thought. When he becomes a martial monarch, should he purposely commit suicide and come back to the Thunderclap Wild Demon City to take a look at the novice village? Wouldn't that scare a whole city of people to death? Alright, no matter what, this time, there seems to be more time and space than when I was in the transient sea. My situation is also much better than when I was in the transient sea. I definitely cannot repeat the mistakes of the first time I went to the transient sea. I want to go on a killing spree. That's right, this is my world. In the entire true martial land, there are hundreds of billions of people. There are at least 5 billion beauties who can cause the downfall of a city, right? They are all mine. Lioli did not deceive me. She said that there would be hundreds of billions of cute girls, and there really are countless cute girls. Hundreds of billions is a bit too much. After all, I have not transformed into tentacles yet, so I am unable to communicate with so many girls at the same time. But it doesn't matter, 5 billion is already enough. The old man's pile driver has been thirsty for countless years. It is time to let it out. In any case, I already have the identity of the perverted flower thief. If I don't do something, I will be letting down the old man's invincible pile driver. It is time to take it out and go on a killing spree. Lord Guang felt like he was about to fly when he thought about how there were 5 billion cute girls waiting for his love in the true martial great land. He felt like he was floating as he walked, and he felt like he was about to fly. My life has been worth it. He closed his eyes, opened his arms, and ran on the broad road to the thunderclap wild demon city, his mind wandering in infinite reverie. If Lioli was still awake and could monitor him at any time, Chen Guang would definitely not dare to be so insolent and arrogant. But now that Lioli has fallen asleep, as the saying goes, the sky is high, the emperor is far away, and the sea is wide. If he does not take this opportunity to do something, his conscience will blame him. He tiptoed on the ground again, jumped 3 feet high, spread his limbs, and glided forward in the air, looking particularly happy. This is the so-called extreme joy begets sorrow. Facts have proven that one cannot be too pretentious. Floating in the air with his eyes closed, Chen Guang originally planned to open his eyes when he landed, but after waiting for a long time, he still had not landed. The wind blowing on his face was getting stronger and stronger. He opened his eyes. If I remember correctly, when I ran from here, it was a plain. Why is there a cliff here when I return the way I came? He lowered his head and looked down. His mind was filled with confusion. How high is this cliff? Chen Guang didn't want to describe it in detail. In short, looking down made him, who originally did not have a fear of heights, suffer from intermittent acrophobia. He thought of another joke. There was a young man who was extremely rich. One day, he accidentally fell from the headquarters of his father's company, but he didn't fall to his death. Instead, he starved to death in midair. Just based on the height of the cliff below, Chen Guang felt that it was possible. This doesn't make sense. The true martial land exists for me. In this world, I am the chosen one with the halo of a protagonist. There is no reason for me to fall to my death from a cliff for no reason. Wait, what is this? This seems to be a very familiar routine. A martial arts world that cultivates inner strength, the halo of a protagonist, falling off a cliff, all 3 elements of a fortuitous encounter are present. According to such a cliché routine, even though the cliff is so high that it makes people's hair stand on end, I definitely won't fall to my death. Not only will I not fall to my death, but there will also be a hidden master at the bottom of the cliff waiting to pass on his skills to me. Otherwise, there will be a peerless secret manual waiting for me. Or there will be a sword tomb or something like that. At the very least, there will be a big eagle, right? If this is the case, Chen Guang doesn't know whether he should be happy or sad. Cliché. Unbearably cliché. How can my life be so cliché? How can I go out and greet people in the future? You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.